in Miami. And thank you to the very generous people of our audience who Ame says were anonymously helped her get over to Miami. And as I said, we're going to tune in with her. She's going to start a room in 3 hours. And then also there will be a VR room starting around the same time that we will do those deep dives on. And we love the deep dive rooms because here we go through the headlines. We get our feet wet. But the deep dive rooms is where the real conspiracy theories really get flying. You know what I mean? That's where we can really jump down into the crazy part of the pool. It's a lot of fun, though. If you haven't done it, you should try it. It's the wild ideas get to fly in the deep dive rooms, and that's not to say things don't get crazy here. They absolutely do. But as you will soon very much see, a couple of other quick little housekeeping things is the tech news around the world. Nearly everybody on stage is a regular. Yeah,
Nick's joined us again.
Now back,
Yeah.
Nick, for the second time.
Hey,
And
Hi.
Penny.
hey, welcome back.
Yes.
Hello from
Hey,
England.
yes.
Hi, Nick.
GCHQ is a buzzing and ready to give you lots of cyber news.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Jeff is joining us, who works together with Justin on this fantastic room that we all just came from, which is they call it the news from
political news from around the capitals.
Yeah, and you can click on Justin and Jeff, give them a follow, because they do in the political space what we do in the tech space, which is get a bunch of smart folks from all over the planet that can help us really understand what's going on from a political perspective. And I brought up a headline about, Hong Kong, which is near and dear to my heart, where tonight, literally as we speak, Hong Kong has one of the biggest annual events every year in Hong Kong is tonight, and it has for the past 32 years they have not celebrated isn't the right word. They had a memorial for Tiananmen Square, which is happening as we speak. However, this is the first year in 32 years where it's not happening in Victoria Park near Causeway Bay, and so they have to be very creative with expressing themselves in a way that won't land them in jail for a very long time. And you can see that from my personal Twitter account, which you can see by clicking on my face and my bio. There's people walking through Causeway Bay with their iPhone. What they're currently doing at this very moment, as we sit here together, they are walking around Causeway Bay with their flashlights on their phones, and walking and not standing still, because if they all stood still together with their flashlights on, that's kind of considered a protest. So they're walking through the streets of Causeway Bay with the lights on their iPhones as sort of a soft signal that they are standing together in this memorial, in memory of Tiananmen Square, as they have done, since it transpired. So my thoughts are with my friends in Hong Kong tonight, and hopefully everyone makes it home safe tonight. So, but that's Justin and Jeff's room, which the political news is incredibly important work that they are doing there. And they bring in members of Congress regularly. They bring in leading political journalists very regularly. And it's of critical importance that we support what they're doing, actually, because being in Washington, D.C., as they both are professionally, and I know Justin's there physically, and Jeff likely is as well, that is, they are, in fact, very literally a bridge to Capitol Hill and bring into Clubhouse, as they are doing. They are bringing members of Congress each week into Clubhouse, and that will likely escalate as their audience sizes escalate as well, which is happening. They had a room yesterday with 700 folks, and the snowball's rolling. And as we go and support them with our feet and our ears in those rooms, and as that room grows, it makes the invitations that they send to Capitol Hill harder to ignore. And
Can I just highlight the impact that you and your room have had on the last congressman that we came across, Tyler? So, folks, I asked Tyler and Carl to poll you on what topic we should do when we had the congressman on Wednesday. And you picked cryptocurrency. And I think that tech news around the world folks asked most of the questions. They were all fantastic questions. But the size of the audience went from 200 to 400 from his last appearance to this appearance, largely because of you folks. And you know what that made me do, or allowed me to do? It allowed us to get these next two guests, which I think everybody will have interest in. For June 23rd at 4 p.m. Pacific time, or 4 p.m. Eastern time, we were able to, based on the support that Tyler and Carl and you folks give us, we have Leon Panetta coming on the show, who is the former CIA director, former defense secretary, and former White House chief of staff.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's a pretty big one. And then Sunday, June 27th, again, this is in large part due to the support Tyler is showing us and the great questions you folks are asking when you come into this room. So the intelligence community is all technology. We're going to go into cybersecurity issues. June 27th, we have a U.S. Congressman, Congressman Jim Himes from Connecticut, who is believed to be the next head of the House of Representatives intelligence community. So the guy who works oversight on the NSA, the CSA, CIA, all these three-letter agencies, and then a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, Ellen Nakashima from the Washington Post, are going to sit on a panel and get into the nitty-gritty on cybersecurity. That's Sunday the 27th. So this is because of Tyler and what you are able to support us. We're able to go and do this. So I just wanted to thank you, Tyler, for running the best show here on Clubhouse and creating a fantastic community.
That would be a great name for a room, the nitty-gritty on cybersecurity. It's got a flow to it. But yeah, it's a win-win. It's a win-win for the app because we're going into the midterm elections, and so the political candidates and all of their team members are going to start jockeying for, how they can speak to the people. And I think anyone who's been in Clubhouse for more than a minute understands this app is actually kind of perfect for, political candidates to come in here. And, just the format is it's just so perfect. So let's take advantage of that. And I really sincerely, it's obvious that what Justin and Jeff are doing over there is precisely the perfect landing pad, and they themselves are the human bridge that will make it happen. So it's important that we support it with our feet in the rooms and help keep those numbers high. And I've made it a habit that when I go in the room, I tweet out the room, and I even ping a few friends into the room just to this point, because it will help the actual app. Because I firmly believe, and I have no doubt, that if we continue based on the trend lines that are happening, it will get to the point where you'll get the Elizabeth Warrens and the Bernie Sanders and all people from both sides, because they're very even-handed in politically in that room, and it will turn into the official landing spot for the politicians when they engage in Clubhouse. It's fantastic. Anyway,
might it be a start for you running for office as well?
No, that you can be damn sure that's not going to happen. You can bet anything you want that that's never going to happen.
We can make that happen. Let's do this.
maybe the mayor of Clubhouse, but that's about a bit. But maybe only if the original guy hands it over. I forget his name. There's somebody with that title that was has an honorary title of mayor of Clubhouse. One of the OGs. But we've got a bunch of news, and by the way, there's quite a bit of political tech news. So just jumping into it, but just one little bit of housekeeping before we jump into it. Welcome everybody who might be new, because we're getting a lot of new people every day. The room's growing, and the club are growing very fast. We just passed 20,000 members earlier today, and the Twitter account is going to break 2,000 followers later today, and because the Twitter account is super important to what we do in this room. Well, here's what I mean. We talk about the headlines in this room. And where are these headlines coming from? Well, they're coming from you on stage and in the audience via Twitter. You tweet them from your Twitter account. You include our Twitter account as part of your tweet, which our Twitter account is very simply TNATW, which is very short for Tech News Around the World, the first letter of each word, TNATW. Include that as part of your tweet. We see it. And then we can very easily retweet it, and then we talk about it. And here's where it gets even better, folks. As we talk about it, and we're talking about the issue, other people continue to search online for other related points to add in additional context around the conversation. So while the conversation's rolling, I say, hey, wait a second, somebody just found an important point that we need to include in this conversation. And you're going to watch this happen in real time. It's quite fantastic what we've stumbled upon here. And we retweet everybody who shares something that we talk about on stage here. So that's part of the fun. So let's do that and jump into it. I'm just checking real quickly. There's already been dozens of tweets that people are already sending in. Most recently, Amanda, who I think is on stage, just shared one about Facebook in the headlines for data usage. And the headline is, Facebook's use of ad data triggers antitrust probes in the UK and the EU. Are you on stage, Amanda? What a fantastic share. I'm going to retweet that right now.
Yeah, so of course data, that's my forte. So anytime I see any platform, in the headlines for that, I definitely want to retweet that. Yeah, so that's interesting. I guess we'll see what goes on with this.
Yeah, and by the way, now we all joined here together and about, 2 days ago, and watched Facebook's annual live streaming event, which was kicked off by none other than Mark Zuckerberg. It was a live stream event. We watched it here together in this room. And by the way, it was a terrible event. You didn't miss anything if you weren't here.
We apologize.
Oh yeah, we want to apologize on Facebook's behalf. It was quite a letdown of an event, by the way. But however, it was so bad that we were wondering, they must be doing this on purpose. Honestly, the production value and the amount of money spent on the event, I don't think they spent more than a couple house plants on the production value of the event, which is really bizarre for one of the world's biggest, wealthiest, profitable companies. It's truly unprecedented because Google and Apple, which are kind of their contemporaries in this field, spend tens of millions of dollars on their events. And so they clearly had not spent more than a few $1,000s on it. It looked like a Zoom call. I mean, and you think I'm exaggerating. I am not. It looked like a Zoom call. So the point though is, we did start to theorize, like, hey, wait a minute, are they doing this on purpose? Because very soon the EU and the US are considering bringing antitrust kind of measures against Facebook, because Facebook is this big blue Borg of a company, a kind of faceless company run by this robotic guy named Mark Zuckerberg. And what they were really trying to do, and we started watching the video with this in mind, is they were showing the most human, normal of normal people as part of this video. Team members within Facebook who are not very senior, who are just sitting at home in their living rooms on their laptops on a Zoom call with their kids running around in the background. It made us realize, like, wait a minute, maybe they're intentionally trying to get us to empathize with the fact that these are very, very mortal, normal, really, really, really normal people, and not this big corporate giant that we think of them to be. And so that's why Amanda's headline is so interesting, because the headline that I just tweeted from the Twitter account, and again, that you can play along and follow the Twitter account, because everything we're talking about, you're going to see on our Twitter account in real time. So here it is. Facebook use of ad data triggers antitrust probes in the UK and the EU today, just 2 days after their live stream event. And perhaps they knew this was coming. And by the way, the content in that live stream was things like, we really, really help, governments with all kinds of things, and we help small businesses hire, and we help with COVID, and we help with all of these things that the government should hopefully appreciate that we are doing. It was unique. It was a really interesting event, but also very interesting that the new development is Facebook is now facing antitrust probes in both the EU and the UK simultaneously. And reading from this article, which there's many people are covering this is big news, but I'm reading the TechCrunch version. It says Facebook is facing a fresh pair of antitrust probes in Europe. The UK's Competition Markets Authority and the EU's Competition Commission both announced formal investigations into the social media giant's operations today, And the competition regulators will scrutinize how Facebook uses data from advertising customers and users of its single sign-on tool, specifically looking at whether it uses this data as an unfair lever against competitors in markets such as classified ads. And this is something I've been saying now for the past few days, which is Facebook is a data company. They are competing against advertising players like newspapers that are not data companies. Newspapers have incredibly limited data. What they know is they print X number of newspapers per day, and they think they really don't have very accurate data around who's reading it. Facebook, on the other hand, being a data company, knows not only who's reading it, they know precisely how many minutes per day they're reading it. They know whether they're in a bad relationship with their significant other. They know how many kids they have, if their grandma's sick, if their dog's going to die. They know everything about you that the newspapers don't know. And it makes it, and that's why the newspapers are dying, by the way. And they know that, and that's why the newspapers write rather unsavory things about Facebook quite regularly, and not very rarely say nice things about Facebook. Now you understand why. But and it's not just Facebook they speak negatively about; it's the other big ad networks like Google and whatnot. So the point of the question of the inquiry here about the anti-competitiveness is Facebook using data from its customers and users, specifically in an unfair lever against competitors in markets such as classified ads. You goddamn right they're doing that. That's the whole fucking point. That's precisely why they exist. They're using all of that juicy data that you put in about, your cousins and your dogs and your aunts and your photos and what you ate for lunch. They're using all of that data to target you. And that makes them an incredibly effective ad platform. Why? Because as an advertiser, you have a cake shop. Are you going to advertise in the local newspaper where you have no idea who's seeing it? Or are you going to advertise on Facebook where you can target people who love cake, who have specifically said to Facebook that they love cake? It's not a very difficult choice as to where you're going to advertise. And now you understand why the newspapers and magazines and radio stations are all dying, because they don't have the data that Facebook has. Facebook is a data company, and they use that data to their advantage. And now the EU and the UK are wondering if they're using that data to their advantage. You're goddamn right they're using that data to their advantage. That's just a stupid question. That's just totally ridiculous. Anyway, my point is, and what we've been talking about the past few days is, not only does Facebook use their data, so does Spotify. Spotify is a data company as well. Google's a data company.
Tyler, the Germans just hit Google as well.
Correct.
So that's in your newsfeed.
Amazon's a data company as well. Amazon's a data company around e-commerce, and it gives them an unfair advantage against other brick and mortar retailers who don't have that data. And my point is that these data-based companies have completely unfair advantages because of the digital nature of data and the targeting ability of data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what you're going to start seeing is data companies going into other massively disruptable spaces like insurance, because the legacy insurance monopolies or dinosaurs are not using data. They're kind of like the newspapers, and they're ready to be disrupted. By the way, so were the banks. The banks weren't using the data that they had in the same way that what the neobanks are doing now. And all of the data-based companies are going to disrupt the same in education. And Antti on stage can tell you himself. The data-based companies are the ones that are going to come in and clean up.
Tyler, that's why we at SiriusXM rebranded ourselves as SXM Media, and we have AdWiz that we purchased.
Oh, hello.
And to your point, Spotify, same thing. So you are absolutely correct. Okay. We are seeing it happening now.
By the way, that was a data company confessing that they're a data company. What Amanda just said, by the way.
And I'm the data guru.
And she's the data person at the data company. And
do we have data on that?
We don't. Let's see if we have any data on how many data collectors are in the room at the moment. So we have a very meta discussion around the data collectors in tech news around the world. But the point is data is the name of the game. And if you're trying to compete in an industry and you don't have data, you're going to lose. Ask the radio stations trying to compete with Spotify. Who can make you a better playlist? Some DJ that lives 500 miles away from you that doesn't know you exist? Or Spotify that knows every song you've ever liked where you skipped in the song, what part of the song you like, and can generate dynamic playlists. They even have now the microphone on your app, and they're able to tell what kind of an emotional state you're in and recommend songs dynamically based on your emotional state. You think the radio station 500 miles away can do that? Give me a break. You can understand how unfair of an advantage you have with the data. So much so, and by the way, the data that they have today, these data companies, is just getting started, my friends. What we've realized in just recent weeks is the amount of new data that's coming on the horizon will blow your mind. But here's how it's happening. There was a headline earlier today. But it happened yesterday. ASICS, the running shoe company, right, is partnered with a data company to make an app. And ASICS says, you know what we would like you to do in this healthy running tracking app? We would like you at the beginning and end of your exercise to just scan your face. And when we scan your face, we're going to be able to tell your emotional state, they say. Well, why are you doing that exactly? Well, it turns out they can actually get an incredible amount of data from your beautiful face, including your gender, including your age, including your physical health, meaning if you've had chronic pains of some kind, if you're obese, if you have Parkinson's disease. These can be told not only from your face, but from your eye, your actual iris, like a doctor looking into your eye. And here's the point. The cameras on your devices are now, in the most recent editions, getting upgraded to the point where it can detect new levels of data that they previously could not. And now that's why there was a headline today that Johan mentioned as we walked into the room 15 minutes ago, that TikTok today announced they've updated their privacy terms of conditions to mention they are now tracking they're doing what they call a face print and a voice print. And what the hell is a face print and a voice print? Well, I'm glad you asked, my friend. A face print is the camera's now going to be recording your face and extracting data from your goddamn face and your voice. Precisely as I'm saying, they're able to tell from your voice whether or not you have, for example, audio algorithms like Shazam, right? Shazam can tell a song in a microsecond. It can also detect depression in a voice, and certainly emotion, which Spotify is using for their algorithms. So much so, when Spotify just announced that they had this new technology, Tom Morello, the guitar player from Rage Against the Machine, no less, did a signature campaign for all of as many artists as possible on the Spotify platform. He tried to get the artists on Spotify to sign a letter as a petition to send to Spotify to say, yes, we understand you have that capability to listen to everybody's microphones on their phones all the time and hear their voice and hear the tone of their voice and recommend songs based on that. And we are asking you, as the artists on Spotify, please don't do that.
And Tyler, as I mentioned, we're doing that at Sirius, collecting voice data, and I think companies who aren't getting into voice data
Correct.
and this space data are going to be behind.
Correct.
And it's happening, to your point, now and fast.
Correct.
Very quickly.
And here's the point. Today, TikTok, yesterday it was ASICS, today was TikTok. I guarantee you, in the next 3 months, every app on your phone is going to essentially require you if you want to continue using the app, that you're going to have to give access to the camera and the microphone, because now that the cameras are improving on the latest versions of all the new phones, and by the way, your laptops as well that are going to be announced Tuesday at the next Apple event, the new MacBook Pros 14-inch and 16-inch will be announced on Tuesday during the live stream in this room, no less, and the new large screen iMac and etc. And also all the new upcoming smartphones will have upgraded cameras. By the way, so does the new iPad Pro. And now, today, and those cameras are going to be able to detect from your face and from your eyes a whole new level of data that these data collecting companies want and need, and will give them an unfair advantage. And if they don't, to Amanda's point, if they, for some bizarre reason, decide, actually, we don't want that data, yeah, right, like that's ever going to happen. They are data companies, by the way. Why would they not take advantage of this juicy new data they can get their hands on and leverage? it gives them an unfair advantage. And if they don't take that data, their competitors will, and they will lose. To my point, if you don't have that data, you're at a severe disadvantage. So that's the new world that we're now stepping into. TikTok today announced they're doing face prints and voice prints. And what that means is they're scanning your face and your eyes, and they're getting all kinds of additional data that you never thought you were giving them before, that you never input with your phone, and you never told them that you're struggle with depression or anxiety, or that, that, by the way, they can tell if you've had alcohol or tobacco or cocaine or ecstasy or cannabis. And if you, for example, have PTSD or oppression or autism, or if you're obese or have chronic pains or concussions of some kind, all these things are discernible from your eyes, let alone your gender and your age. That's trivial. Matter of fact, there are facial recognition algorithms that Wired.com covered in a lab that were able to detect from a face if it's a Republican or a Democrat with 85% accuracy. Also, if somebody is heterosexual or homosexual with near 90% accuracy from their face. So you don't need to tell it if you're homosexual or heterosexual. It knows. You don't need to tell it if you're Republican or Democrat. It knows. And that builds an ad platform where advertisers, the cake shops and the shoe shops can go on and say, I want to target Democrat homosexuals who love cake. And now they'll be able to do that. And can the newspaper let them target people like that? Hell no. And now you see how valuable that data is, because there's people who are going to want to target Republicans or Democrats or homosexuals or heterosexuals or obese people or people with Parkinson's or people with autism or people who had too much alcohol last night. So these ad networks are going to get all this new data. And by the way, that's just the camera. Wait till you put on the sensors, the ring that tracks your sleep and your pulse rate and your blood monitor and your oxygen levels and all that healthy juice, the health data. Then shit starts getting really crazy, my friend. So anyway, you're right. The headline that Amanda shared is Facebook. Facebook's use of ad data triggers antitrust probes in the UK and the EU. And the ironic part is these governments move so slow that they're 5 years late to that argument, by the way. And that Facebook can now stand up and defend themselves and say, hey, now everyone's going to have this data in the next 2 months. And they're actually kind of right. The EU and the UK, if they wanted to press on this point, they should have done this 5 years ago. And now it's a little too late at this point. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And no doubt we will cover how it plays out as it happens. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for that headline, Amanda. On to the next headline, shall we? Anyone want to jump in popcorn style? Feel free.
I have a small headline from Quebec, Canada.
Uh-huh.
It's a planning project of Martin Bouchard, who was the founder of Copernic Search. So they will build a $5 billion data center in with high density data processing. But what's particular about this project and really amazing is that they will use the heat of the data center to heat the greenhouse. So they will have like 400 hectares of greenhouse, and then they will use the heat of all those data centers to the greenhouse, and then we will have like nice vegetables from it. So that was the news from Montreal.
Turning lemons into lemonade. That's gotta admire that. Did you share that to the Twitter account?
Yeah, I just shared it because
I got it right here. The Quebec AI processing centers, right?
Yeah, and then just to see that a gigafactory is a $5 billion project, so it's in the time looking of the scale of the projects, it's pretty huge.
Yeah, 4 billion to be exact, but yeah. Although now with inflation it might be 5. But I only know that because I was helping Peter Carlson with the Northvolt gigafactories in Sweden. But yeah, I see your headline and I just shared it, and that's a brilliant article. Quebec AI processing centers to heat. And by the way, my buddy Sam Cole, who had the largest Bitcoin mining operation in Europe, which was called KNC Miner in the north of Sweden, that city up there, and he built it up in the north of Sweden because it's cheap electricity, and he could resell the heat generated from the Bitcoin mining to the city. And he was the largest consumer of electricity in all of Scandinavia. His one company. It's kind of wild how much electricity they were consuming, but they resold the heat back, as you know. Well, that's a great article. And again, for those who are new to the game, how we play it is go to the Twitter account, which is TNATW. That's Tech News Around the World. And you'll see John Francois' tweet that I just retweeted to our now nearly 2,000 followers. And we're adding about 100 a day. And a whole bunch of people are sending in new tweets that I see because they include our Twitter handle as part of their tweet. And it makes it very easy for me to see it and retweet it, just as I'm doing right now with Katarina. So let's retweet this one so everyone can see it. And I did retweet Heyman's about TikTok's data, and I retweeted Rutvi's about Facebook's antitrust. And now I'm retweeting Katarina about states that fall well below vaccinating 70% of adults are sitting ducks. Katarina, what's this all about from CNN? You want me to do it? Is she on stage? I can do it. It says the U.S. is pushing to have 70% of adults get at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine by July 4th, but an expert says that that number is important to reach at the state level too. And those states who are falling well below may be vulnerable to another outbreak. Hint, hint, Texas. There are 12 states that are already at 70%, and I worry about the ones that are way below that, and they are sitting ducks for the next outbreak of COVID-19, which shouldn't have to happen now. National Institute of Health Director Francis Collins told CNN's Chris Cuomo. 63% of adults have received at least one COVID-19 vaccine dose, according to data published Thursday by the U.S. Center of Disease Control and Prevention. But President Biden's goal of 70% of adults is having at least one vaccine dose has met a significant obstacle, a dwindling number of people who want to get vaccinated. And they are expecting another big wave in the places that aren't getting vaccinated. And it says we have pockets in this country that have lower rates of vaccination. I worry that this virus is an opportunity and that where we have low rates of vaccination are where we may see it again. And they specifically name Alaska, Arkansas, Georgia, Idaho, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Wyoming, otherwise known as the South. And indeed, part of the problem here is, to be very specific, not from the U.S., everyone in the U.S. will easily understand what I'm about to say, we are going into the summer. And the South, during the summer, is ridiculously hot. It's so hot that they have to stay indoors with air conditioning, which is the ideal conditions for spreading COVID. You see the problem. So the South, which doesn't have the higher rates of vaccination, are going into the summer where they'll be staying indoors with air conditioning, which is how COVID is now more understood to be spread. And you can see why they are so concerned and trying to encourage all those knuckleheads to go ahead and get themselves vaccinated so that we can hopefully beat all of these new variations that are coming into play all over Asia, for example, which is very concerning. So thank you for that. Thank you for that article.
I have a party pooper question after the person who.
Go ahead, Diva.
Oh, thank you. Okay. With the Miami conference and Bitcoin,
yep,
and the people that I follow in the Bitcoin clubs, a lot of them are anti-vaxxers because they're like libertarians and stuff, and they don't like being controlled.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if there will be a poll that that would follow these people as far as like how many would be, and I hate to say it, but I'm just going to say it like this. How many would come down with a COVID-19 after the event, after 1 or 2 weeks later?
Oh,
so
if the Bitcoin event could be a super spreader event because there's very low vaccinations. It happens to be in Florida. And I guess it depends how much of that event is indoors or outdoors. And Florida is quite outdoors. So I'm optimistic that it won't. Yeah,
we can do it that way. But a lot of them also are like they're there for the party, not really so much.
You bring up a great point, which is Bitcoiners, as you call them. There is a strong strain of libertarians who are Bitcoiners. That is absolutely true, and they also coincidentally are probably less prone to being. There's probably also another correlation around not having exuberance around being vaccinated. That's also likely true. So you bring up a really interesting point that Bitcoiners correlate quite well with people who don't like to be vaccinated, and they're joining into a large conference down in Miami. And let's hope that that doesn't turn into a super spread event. Yeah.
Hopefully, they're also popular. Basically, they quarantine themselves too. Basically, most of these guys are online, not out there, right? So they'll probably be quarantining once they get home.
Good point. Well, yeah, let's hope that their social awkwardness actually keeps them, social
You're
distancing.
stereotyping.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No.
I'm eating. Thank you.
You're talking about my
Else
friends.
it will be a large addition to the list of Darwin Awards.
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
go ahead.
hey, this is Gabby. I'm
Hey,
actually
Gabby.
in Miami right
Hey,
now
welcome.
at the Bitcoin conference. I
Yeah.
just woke up in my hotel. So I will say this, at least for myself, like I've actually had COVID-19. And as you guys are aware, if you read the research, at least for 5 months, I think they're saying that you have antibodies.
Yep.
I will say that a lot of the events are indoors. I mean, some of like the after social events are outdoors. Um, but at least here in America, they've been saying that 50% of the population has the vaccine, and I think a quarter of the population is like the lower age, that probably couldn't travel here, like teenage or such. And in terms of who gets the vaccine, it seems as though at least the African American population is less likely to get it. And I can't say that here at the Bitcoin conference that there are that many people from the African American population. As you see, I'm part of it. So I just got up to just kind of dispel you guys' theory with some actual facts.
This is a really interesting point. Michael, are you listening to this? I'm wondering if there's data around that, around kind of the American statistics divided, based on color of which populations or which groups are more or less likely to get vaccinated, and the reasons behind it would be really interesting as well. Yes, Chris?
Tyler,
yeah.
We have a friend in the medtech side, Dr. Stephen Thomas,
Uh-huh.
and his big initiative is to use the barber shops as the point of contact.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So I'll share that with you and see if we can drag him in here. But what he's doing is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I was just going to add that point that Biden just did the new initiative to get to put more money in barbershops and hair salons to have vaccines, and that's specifically to get African Americans.
And that all started here with Clubhouse, guys. That was
Did it
people
really?
we all know here. It's amazing. Yeah,
that's
it's a fantastic.
fantastic.
It's a
so
fantastic
I know all
story.
about it. I was going to add that that's because the statistics are that the African American population is less likely to take the vaccine due to things that have happened historically to African Americans.
Like
and so I totally understand.
So the information we have here in New York it's not like that. I'm not sure about other states because it's the biggest which party you vote for. Like if you're Republican, you're less likely. Actually, African American and Hispanic population, the vaccination rate is really, really high because most of them are first, more in jobs, essential worker jobs, and they got hit really, really bad. So I don't. This
it
is
depends
a
on the
general
state.
vaccine
It
statistic.
completely depends on each state.
Yeah, I think
it
it's more
depends
a
on the
general
state.
vaccine statistics and not too much COVID.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The education was pretty good. Another thing I wanted to add is the woman workforce related to COVID. There was an NPR article I just shared that they didn't, a lot of women had to quit their jobs to take care of the kids because of school closing, and most of them are highly unlikely to get soon back to work. And, especially in those states that have lower vaccination rates are more prone to become, a target for the new a new COVID strains. Because if you had COVID, you are not protected against the other strains, which is different if you have the vaccine. So it's very important to get the vaccination, even if you had COVID, to be protected against the other strains. And this affects the most women if COVID comes back.
Hey, Tyler,
Tyler.
did you go over
Tyler,
the group that's
go ahead,
being?
Justin.
Sorry, Michael, real quick.
No, you got it, brother. Go ahead.
Real quick. Did you go over the group that's most vaccine hesitant is the white Republican, and it's a misnomer that it is any minority groups? Was that covered?
No.
Okay, yeah. So,
That was
folks,
not covered, but I agree.
here in the United States, there has been a lot of media basically saying that Black people and African Americans are the most vaccine hesitant, and they point to a lot of good reasons, right? For people that don't know, there was the U.S. government running these inhumane scientific trials back in the 60s and 70s, the Tuskegee experiments, so on and so forth, down to Iran-Contra, where the United States government was essentially selling crack to inner city kids, and then they ultimately created laws that disproportionately imprisoned this community that they were going and selling the crack to, so that they could buy weapons and send them to fighters in proxy wars overseas in Iran-Contra. Go look it up. This is all not conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy, both of them, that have been proven true. So the U.S. media, in their ham-handed way sometimes of dealing with things, basically tried to blame the Black community as being the most vaccine hesitant. And that just has not borne itself out. Here in America, the reason why our vaccine hesitancy is so high in certain areas is, yes, it's liberals, it's Republicans. However, most of the vaccine hesitancy, I believe the last poll that I saw showed 42% of Republicans that would not get vaccinated. And it is simply because that is the type of rhetoric that their leaders on the grassroots effort in politics, their leaders in Congress in politics have been espousing. You can go look at Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, who's a Republican, and he basically said that there is no reason for healthy Americans that are young to get the vaccine. So I just want to clarify that Tech News Around the World, we focus on facts here. It is basically the white Republican that is the most vaccine hesitant, and many people blame the leaders in the Republican Party, the leaders of the grassroots effort, because they've been typically anti-vaccine and not as embracing as the rest of our leaders here in the United States. So I wanted to add that, Tyler. I'm Justin.
Thanks.
And I'm done.
Michael.
So hang on one second, buddy. So I was getting DM'd that you were calling for me, and told why, and I just caught the tail end of of this a little bit here, and whoever it was on stage that was talking about the hesitancy in the Black community, I believe it was a young lady. She's not wrong, though. I will say that, and we talk about this in Black rooms very, very often, and it, according to the data as well, in terms of the CDC data, something like 20, I think it's between 20 and 25% of Black Americans have gotten a shot, which does still trail that of whites in the majority of the states, the overwhelming majority of the states. I want to say almost all of them. And it's a topic that's very heavily discussed, even here on. In fact, I'll ping you into a couple of those rooms, Tyler, because
Cool.
it's still a conversation that's happening today. And yeah,
I just sent out. Somebody just sent in a tweet. Somebody with the Twitter handle Fluid IQ shared an article from the Washington Post about the barbershops offering coronavirus shots. In addition to cuts and shaves, which is truly fantastic. Like they're kind of incentivizing.
That's me, Tyler.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Michael,
that.
Michael, this was Gabby that said that. Ping me in the rooms too, because I know the layers, like on your whether your political preference, but most people in this room need to keep in mind that there are more white Americans than there are Black Americans. So typically, if you do it statistically, just based off the numbers, if it's Republican, that number will be greater because there are less Blacks in America than whites.
Exactly, and that's one of the things. Well, one of the things I love about this room, and thank you for letting me know that, and I'll absolutely ping you in, Gabby. And one of the things I love about this room is you'll have just noted, the guys like Tyler and Justin are very privy to the fact that you can't base things on statistics without taking what has or hasn't been held accountable in our communities actually impact. The fact that Justin even understands that the government funnel guns and drugs into our neighborhoods to shoot for an internal genocide should should cue everyone in on that. But yeah, I'll definitely ping you into those rooms because you're not wrong.
And
Hi,
then
Michael. This is Elle. Can you ping me too? But I also wanted to say too, we have to make it easier for them to get to the vaccine. Not everyone has like access to the internet and access to phones to actually like schedule appointments and all that stuff. So it has to be
True.
more accessible as well.
So
That's an issue.
Elle just hit on the point that I wanted to hit on. The other aspect here is that the vaccine rollout, while being generally quote unquote good in the United
No,
States,
they already figured it out.
has been unequal, and specifically,
Very true.
it has not, like, we focused on like sports stadiums, and like Elle was saying, you have to have a phone hooked up to something and an internet, and it's very confusing, and certain employers, usually white collar employers, are providing more information to their employees, and basically it's been a wealthy thing. The wealthier people have been able to get the vaccine easier. But here in DC, for example, a city that is majority black, white people have gotten the vaccine much easier than black people. And that is largely due to the government rollout and the education system. So I just
Exactly.
want to say that I think that as the Biden administration does programs like this, which are tailored to and targeted to other communities, we will begin to see these numbers. Hopefully, this is the optimist in me, and Michael, tell me if I'm full of shit. But I think as the vaccine becomes more accessible to underserved communities, more people will take it. So the government is kind of screwed up a little bit and treated people unequally and unfairly, and it's another just systematic inequality that we have here.
But
To
in
Yeah,
that
one
sense,
thing.
Justin,
One thing that I'll throw
to
in
Yeah.
real
Elle's
quick.
point, that's
The
absolutely spot
next
on.
topic.
yeah,
We do talk about that as well in those rooms. To Elle's point, that is definitely spot on. But go ahead. Let's move on to the next
I would
topic.
could
like to
I
be
Just
could
I
I
I
could
would
I
like
just
to be
add?
pinged
Sorry.
in too.
okay,
Do you
Dr.
mind
Francine. Yeah.
pinging me in too?
No, I don't mind at all, Dr. Francine. I'll absolutely ping you into those rooms if you like to.
Yeah.
And I want
just
to do
quickly
that
wanted
for
to
the
share.
Philippines. We don't get a lot of news. I have to scrounge and to ask doctors to give me referrals to other doctors if they're doing something about, because we have a brain drain. A lot of our doctors go to the United States and other places. So only the very, very dedicated nationalistic ones remain. And so it's hard to scrounge. So ping me in so I can at least ask them when I learn about it, and then they can answer.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
And
you.
gonna
Tyler and
roll.
Gabby, I'll
Just
add
quickly
it
wanted to
additional
share
data to
this.
that Twitter. Okay, tweet. I'll just add it as a reply.
Yeah, we're
Just
gonna
like quickly
roll. We're
wanted to
gonna
share,
roll in
Tyler.
deep with our whole posse into those rooms. The
Well,
whole
I
the whole tech
I
news crew
just
gonna be
realized.
rolling deep into the COVID rooms.
It's just gonna
Hey,
arrive.
hey,
Okay,
Tyler.
guys, we gotta move
Tyler,
on,
We're
right?
here,
Tyler,
Tyler,
y'all.
you have
The
music.
geeks have
We're moving on.
arrived.
And you know what? The crazy thing is, everyone in those rooms are gonna immediately know it's my fault.
Yeah.
Okay, as probably the only lone Republican in this room, I just would ask, in a data junkie, I would just ask before we put race in front of anything, understand density, pre-existing condition, and income level before we go into any particular group is the issue. So factor those things in before we start talking color and everything like that. That's just
Yeah.
my old man's
well,
two
well, that's
cents.
why I threw in the
Now
whole
I need to
That's
jump
accessibility
in and
thing,
comment.
Robert.
that
I touched it
correlation
already.
exists. See, it doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
we factored it in.
Don't exist in vacuum. They have correlations to race and, as you said, social economic conditions. But race is correlated. So that's
Yep.
just my being married to a
Yes.
black person. I know this.
Just
Having a half black child, so I am into this, even though I'm not. Thank you.
Hey, and this is
Huron
just
has been
quickly
Gabby.
trying
wanted
to
to
talk,
share.
by the way.
This is
Huron.
Tyler, just
Gabby.
quickly
Gabby, go
Just
ahead.
wanted to
before
share
I
like
go,
interesting news.
I
Hold on.
just,
Hold on,
hey,
Karim.
I just want you guys all to know that I actually work for the federal government. I'm a scientist. I write scientific articles published. I write air quality regulations that impact the entire United States and the territories. I know, like, I don't talk about it much, but this is how I talk real simply when I come in here, like in a simple, general. But I know everything that you guys are talking about. I know, and that's why I haven't left my job because I'm trying to make sure that the federal government talks to everybody in the United States, just not how they've been doing things in the past. And I'm done speaking.
Okay.
Could
Thank
I
Now
you,
add,
Gabby. We appreciate you.
we
Tyler?
gotta.
Could I add?
We've
Sorry.
been adding for 10 minutes, and I'm
We've
trying to
been
move
adding,
on.
yeah.
Go ahead,
But we
Florian.
gotta
Yes,
move on.
but
We
again,
gotta move on,
Huron
guys.
hasn't
the
spoken,
two
though.
headlines
in that relation, which I shared one earlier this morning with you, Tyler, on Twitter, and also one right now. And one part, of course, is that announcement of the Biden administration to basically support the digital access inclusion of indigenous people in the United States.
Oh, that's a whole separate new topic. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, this relates to access and to the vaccines and to getting the same right.
Okay.
And then another article, which is not about the United States, but in it cited, of course, that the United States is one of the few countries which by 2025 will have a higher GDP than before the pandemic.
Yep.
All others will suffer, and you can see the swing back. But also the role on the article is that tech, specifically, and not only in the United States, but in India, for example, is actually the great accelerator for recovery after the pandemic.
Sure, exactly right. Yeah, and I think I think when you tweeted those, I think I retweeted them when you were doing your room earlier today. Did I not?
Yes, but this is not. I just tweeted the tech entrepreneurs and startups drive India's pandemic recovery article. Just
I can't get to that because I've been waiting for 20 minutes to get to the article I've been trying to share for 20 minutes. So after I do the article I've been waiting to do, then I can get to your article.
Well, we love your patience.
Yeah, so I've been waiting for 20 minutes to say, "Hey, Florian, you just shared a nice tweet about NASA."
And then, that's why I'm here, the bulldozer.
Then. And then after Florian talks about that, and then Rootvies is going to talk about TikTok, and then Matt's going to talk about the COVID tracker, and then we're going to get to your article, Florian. So go ahead, Florina, about NASA.
Tyler, can I quickly share on the vaccine bit?
No, no, you can't.
No.
Not,
moving on.
Okay.
Not even.
Very interesting news.
How does that
Very interesting news.
Not even close.
Okay.
Come on,
Florina.
That train has passed.
Yes, Florina, are you here?
No, she's not.
She left because we were talking about oh shit, guys.
Next.
I think she wanted to talk about Venus, right?
Well, she sent in the tweet while she was on stage and got tired of waiting and she left. So the article she sent was, and she works with NASA, part of NASA's Discovery program. The 2 new missions to Venus are to understand how a planet so like ours became an inferno ball. And it would be great because she's got professional insights into that.
She's back.
I just pinged her back in.
Great. Okay, fantastic. The power of the magic.
We need you when you get off the phone, though.
She's on the phone call. Okay. So we'll go on to the next one, which was Rootvies shared a really interesting article that I'm now retweeting for everyone to see about TikTok launches an initiative to support small and medium-sized businesses to do commerce on TikTok, which is hardly a surprise. If you follow us each day here at Tech News Around the World, you know that the social platforms like TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, they're all getting super excited about their new role in e-commerce called social commerce. And Facebook basically did a really interesting announcement about that in their live stream and very subtly pointed out that now through their messenger apps and etc., that people can do commerce and build commerce apps into their messaging apps, and TikTok is also going to build commerce into TikTok. And so it says that TikTok is to help small, medium businesses increase traffic to their sites. They have a campaign called Shop Local Saturday, will also give them access to the creators, produced ads, creative workshops, and listings on TikTok's website and blog. Apart from its latest project, the short video platform also offers tools and resources that SMBs can use to leverage TikTok. This includes ad managers and etc. TikTok has also signed deals with governments of Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam to conduct initiatives that will support small businesses. This comes, very much so. TikTok wants to get into the e-commerce game, and they realize there's millions and millions and millions of small mom and pop shops who don't know how to build e-commerce sites, and it would be just so much simpler if they built their little e-commerce sites into TikTok. And TikTok's right. And that's the future. You're going to have your uncles and aunts doing crazy dances to sell, shoes and cupcakes on TikTok, as is already happening across Asia. So get ready for that.
So Tyler, this is Rupizio. Yeah. So it's interesting because we were just talking about how TikTok is going to get so much data using their ad and everything else. And now they're entering alliances with the government to get the data for SMEs and then use those data to get more perfectly in products that is going to take a release in entire Southeast Asia.
100% correct. That, and Rootvies, you are brilliant, my friend. You're exactly right. They're doing both sides simultaneously. TikTok, as of 2 months ago, was a dancing app. And what is happening right before our eyes, although rather you have to look closely and pay attention to tech news around the world to figure this out, which is they're now going to onboard all the small mom and pops, as this article I just retweeted says, to start using TikTok as their e-commerce platform to sell all of their shoes and flowers and bicycles. And at the same time, they're going to have the users of TikTok, that's you, scan your face and your eyes and listen through your microphone to everything about you so they can learn more about you, so that those shops, the flower shops, shoes shops, bike shops, can target more directly the customers they want to target through TikTok. And so that they aren't showing their ads to everybody in TikTok, they're just showing the ads to the people who match their products and services. And that's why TikTok needs to collect all this data, which they just was announced today. So Rootvies is exactly right. They're now simultaneously working on both sides of their platform. Brilliant share.
Does TikTok have a partnership with Shopify?
Great question. That, my God, was that Dr. Francine Hardaway? Because that is a brilliant question. And that sounds like something that takes incredible.
It was her. Yeah, it was her.
Yeah.
So many of the other social shopping incentives have partnerships already in place with Spotify.
Exactly right. It's a great question. It's not clear yet.
I think yes. I just Googled.
They
I
actually
think yes.
do.
They actually do
If I
have
can
a
just
partnership.
add to that, they go ahead.
Sorry, there's an article on February 23rd that says Shopify is expanding its social commerce partnership with video sharing platform TikTok to additional 14 countries in North America, Europe, and Middle East and Asia. The goal is to help sellers create in-feed shoppable sites targeting TikTok users around the world.
Perfect. So I hope that's a yes, because I just threw a whole bunch of money into Dr. Francine Hardaway.
Dr. Francine, did you buy Shopify stocks?
She's doing that right now.
I can't afford it anymore.
She's opening her Robinhood account as we speak. Yes.
Hey Tyler, sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to have a follow up on that TikTok and the agenda of getting data into the space.
Yeah.
So there's another report that says consumer behavior in Singapore and Philippines and Thailand is most influenced by the Western celebs. And it's good. It's funny that TikTok is one of the most utilized apps in this area. So in terms of social media, a lot, because consumption of TikTok is huge in these in Southeast Asia. So now that they do recognize that it's influenced by the Western celebs, getting them on board here using their TikTok, already existing TikTok from US and Europe, to get to these users to influence more would be good space for them to get data and to build more products for them, I guess. So that's an interesting take, I guess.
Thank you for that. So the next article I want to share is from Malormi, who just shared one that I'm now retweeting to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, about Britain fintech called Curve raises most successful crowdfunding of 10 million euros in 54 hours. And I'm wondering if this is the company that Kieran was talking about in London when he was on stage with us the other day. I thought he said it was called Curve. I could be wrong, but you can click on that article and do the deep dive. Katerina just shared a fantastic article that I'm retweeting now about BMW's iHydrogen next fuel cell SUV with a battery boost. So it's a BMW SUV. Looks cool as hell. You can see it right now by checking our Twitter account, which you can find by clicking on the title of this room. And they call it the iHydrogen. And it has a mixture of hydrogen and battery. And they use the battery for, I assume, the acceleration, because it's very well suited for that. And then when you're kind of in cruising mode, maybe it uses the hydrogen fuel cell. And they will start selling in next year. Will offer a strong battery boost system, bringing substantial power to this new BMW SUV.
Finally, some common sense in the electric car game. I mean, hydrogen is really the future, everybody. I mean, it's once they crack the safety of it, once they can store it well, everybody's going to be using hydrogen. I mean, you take water, you split up the H2O, and you have oxygen to breathe and hydrogen for your fuel. So sorry, I'll shut up.
No, but you specialize in this area. So could you say a
Yeah, I
little
don't
bit more?
disagree. Chris, could you share more?
Well, it's just I'm a mechanical engineer, and what I studied was combustion and propulsion. And I kind of quickly realized that you just need something to move an electron. That's all electricity is. And they refer to hydrogen as a naked proton because all it is a proton. There's nothing around it. So what it does really well is it attracts electrons, and that's why hydrogen's a great battery source.
And what do you say to lithium fanboys like myself?
I mean, I think lithium's fantastic. It's just the impact of getting rid of it, right? Like I've read somewhere, like one of the only ways to really get rid of lithium is to bury it and then grow mustard, like the plant mustard, and that's how they mitigate lithium on the planet. And for me, that's the main reason. Otherwise, lithium's fantastic.
Interesting, because Toyota seems to be really big into the hydrogen game, hydrogen fuel cells. And there's an article that Katerina also just shared that I'm retweeting to the Tech News Twitter account about what they call the Toyota Mirai, which is a hydrogen fuel cell stunner, like super stylish. It looks like a Maserati, actually. And it arrives this December. Toyota will launch the car in the US in just 1 month with 2 different stylings, and you can see what that looks like. It looks like a Maserati, but it's a Toyota, and it runs on a hydrogen fuel cell. Heyman's sharing an article now about the latest data on COVID-19 vaccination rates by race and ethnicity in the U.S. So for those who really want to deep dive on that, you can do that now from the Twitter account. And then an interesting article was circulating today about, speaking of TikTok, as we were, a lady in The Guardian was telling how she discovered she had attention deficit disorder by using TikTok. And then somebody commented on the tweet on our Twitter account that they themselves, one of the listeners of Tech News Around the World, said that they themselves had discovered they had ADHD by using TikTok. And I don't recall who that was. But the article, I just retweeted it so you can see it, is about a 23-year-old named Matilda Bosley. And she says, TikTok accidentally detected my ADHD. And for 23 years, everyone missed the warning signs. And she says, learning you have ADHD on TikTok is now such a common phenomena, it has become its own meme. And the story goes on about how women have been underdiagnosed with ADHD for decades. And she tells her personal story about it. And it can be...
Hi, Tyler.
Yes. Hello.
British correspondent. Sorry, I popped out. On that note, though, there's a suspicion that this is all a big ruse to get hold of ADHD and lubes. Which we can't use here.
Talking.
I've just got a funny one I'm not going to apologise for, about our world-beating track and trace system that we had a big falling out with Apple about in the UK when it was built. And we were told by our Prime Minister it was world-beating, but it failed. So we've just managed to snooker one of our most senior political figures, Mr. Michael Gove, in his own track and trace disaster. So we're now referring to him as Duck and Gove, as he decided to go to Portugal, the place that we've now put on a banned list, to go and watch a football match, and didn't realise he'd left his Duck and Travel Gove on his app. And he's now been forced into home imprisonment as a result, because he apparently came in contact with a coronavirus person whilst travelling on his Duck and Go football mission. Not good.
No.
Thanks, Tyler.
Yes, thank you for that. That's and keep them coming. Yes, Heyman.
Wonder how many ADD and dyslexic patients or people with dyslexia are on Clubhouse. Actually, it's an audio format, right?
About ADD on TikTok. My doctor tried to diagnose me a long, long time ago, like when I was in university in 2014. She told
Tanya,
me that...
could you get closer to the mic or something? Or just you might, it's just a little bit fuzzy. But it's okay, we can hear it if you can't.
Headphones. Every time I try to talk through them,
that's much better.
That's much better.
Much better.
Yeah, much better. Yeah.
All right, not to use AirPods when I talk. Now I know that. Yeah, I was scrolling through TikTok, and this reminded me that I should probably go and get, because 6 years ago I was told that I should be on Adderall, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna ignore you because I'm totally normal, and everyone thinks like this. And then more and more through the years, I've talked to more people with ADD or ADHD, and I'm now realizing that, I should have looked into this a long time ago, and now I'm going to.
So a risk factor for ADHD is actually electronic media exposure. So I'd be interested in seeing a correlation between heavy TikTok users and ADHD development.
Right. Yeah. I think we're all going to learn a lot about that in the next few weeks now that this article's come out.
I'm also curious about like Clubhouse and ADHD.
Yeah. Indeed. Not just ADHD, but other. I'm curious about Clubhouse and psychopathy and social sociopathies, of which I've noticed a few.
Very curious about that.
There's some good laughing going on the stage, but
hey, anxiety disorders too.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that's something.
all kinds of disorders, and it would. By the way, it might lead app developers of social media apps. I've said this before, to potentially, if there are ways to do kind of screenings and scannings while onboarding users into apps, like if Clubhouse had a test that you could take, because there are tests, assumedly, that people could take to help them self-evaluate if they might have ADHD or dyslexia or where they are on the spectrum of autism or psychopathy or sociopathy. All of these things that might be useful for them to know before engaging on a platform. Just a wild thought I'm throwing out there. Although that does open a whole can of worms that the apps understandably might want to avoid and not embrace, clearly.
That sounds like lawsuit.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds, yeah, exactly. That's why I'm saying that's probably why we don't have that. But Katerina shared another hyper insane NASA tech supercar. You really got to see this thing. It looks like the most futuristic car I've ever seen, called the Hyperion, on the NASA tech supercar, and why hydrogen is a superior energy source to batteries, to Chris's point. So that you can do the deep dive on that one. And then what else do we got here? Shopify.
This car looks really cool.
That is a super crazy looking futuristic car indeed. And I'm now retweeting Cheryl's tweet about Shopify and TikTok take social commerce global. And I love the sound of this, from adweek.com. And as Dr. Francine Hardaway was asking about, is this whole social commerce thing that TikTok is getting in on. And by the way, every social app is getting in on it. I assure you, even Tinder will have people selling stuff before long. That TikTok, it says Shopify and TikTok take social commerce global. That's the headline of the article. What began as a US-based partnership in October is now in 15 countries, this partnership of Shopify and TikTok. And by the way, all of the social media apps who are going to start doing e-commerce are most likely going to use Shopify. Shopify seems to really have this down, all of these big partnerships. They're going to partner with Spotify. In fact, that was recently announced here in Clubhouse, where the CEOs of both of those companies came into a Clubhouse room together. Daniel Ek from Spotify and Toby from Shopify were talking about that partnership. And imagine what that's going to look like when all of the millions of artists on Spotify are able to sell stuff through Shopify on Spotify. So when you're,
So when celebrities get together, they like mash up the names. What are they going to do there?
How do you merge those two names, Shopify and Spotify? That is a tricky one. Shopify?
Spotify.
Shopify x Spotify.
But the point is that Spotify. That's it right there. You nailed it. Spotify. So Spotify will be for the artists and creatives who are on Spotify will be, but they won't be selling. Well, they'll sell merch for sure. Their shirts and their tour merch that they normally sell at their shows is a natural first assumption. But you can also imagine they could even sell their own goddamn concert tickets rather than selling them through these other platforms. Why not sell them directly to their fans through Spotify? They can also sell them potentially through NFTs, assuming that Spotify enables NFTs, because then they could sell virtual goods as well, and even their rights to their music and songs, so that you could quote unquote own limited editions of the song, so they could make it purchasable to the first 1,000 people who actually want to own the song, and then you, as the owner of the song, can collect additional recurring revenue by the additional streams of that song, and then things get really crazy and wild indeed. But I'm looking forward to see what the Spotify part. Thank you to whoever figured that out. Was that Florina?
Yeah, it was Florida.
Yeah.
I
Stop.
feel like
For
I'm
some
having a
reason, I want
conversation with
Shata.
like the grandparents at Jerry's Deli or some shit.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Spotify. That's
I think
genius.
Wu-Tang did an album that was only one copy that sold for a couple $1 million.
Correct. Indeed.
Yeah.
And by the way,
in fact, it sold to that one guy who jacked all the fucking medicine prices up.
That's
really
right.
The Pharma Bro.
Oh yeah.
Rick Kelly.
Yes. Who went to jail? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a waste of that album.
Yeah. And then Heyman is helping us with this TikTok deep dive that we're doing today. TikTok begins testing in-app shopping to challenge Facebook. That was just published here from Bloomberg. And no doubt they are. So I'm retweeting that one. TikTok has already begun testing waters in online shopping through promo tie-ups with Walmart and Shopify. And there you have it. We are now marching headfirst into the future of social media and e-commerce called social commerce. And it's only a matter of time before your aunts and uncles are doing crazy dances on TikTok selling all kinds of crazy shit. And that
there's more.
Yeah.
So the TikTok, two Canadian startups, part of the TikTok's push to provide more third-party integration. So Montreal-based audio software startup Lander and Vancouver-based video-first dating app Snack have integrated into TikTok as well.
Yeah,
Heyman's a really good guy, by the way. I just wanted to point that out, and I know that sounds weird, but he DM'd me something the other night. You're a really good dude, Heyman.
Yes, sir. He is a good dude.
Yeah. And maybe people can find more articles about Heyman being a good dude. That would be maybe
Heyman is a good dude.
I'm going to write one.
More articles.
I'm literally going to write an
very
article
good
called Heyman semicolon a good dude.
We'll just
We
tweet
must
it
find
out.
him a nice girl.
Heyman is a good dude.
Let's do a poll.
Let's do a poll. Somebody send me his
Flash your
LinkedIn.
mic if Heyman's
fantastic room last night, which I hope they do more of.
You cut out, Tyler, on Dr. Dr.
I was saying that last night Heyman and Dr. Francine Hardaway did a room last night called the Karma Club, which was great. And do follow them so that you know when they do that room again. Which I hope it's going to be weekly. Is it?
Yeah, it is weekly, and it's part of a series called "How to Be a Better Global Citizen."
Love it.
Using karmic principles.
Love it. So,
session
Amanda, our resident data geek at Sirius XM and Pandora Music, just found another great article about should you be worried about privacy with Amazon Sidewalk? And the Popular Science, who wrote the article, says yes and no. So I just retweeted that one. And Amanda, have you read that one, or what is the takeaway from that if you're still on stage?
She's here.
Yeah, so I'm here, so I haven't read it thoroughly yet, but it caught my attention, so if we can just breeze through it.
Okay. It says, if you use Amazon's Echo devices at home or Tile Tracker to do things like find your keys, pay attention. A controversial and interesting change is afoot. On Tuesday, June 8th, which is 4 days from now, Echo devices will start working with a network called Amazon Sidewalk. And on June 14th, Tile Trackers will do the same, here's what to know about Amazon Sidewalk and why the privacy issues around it may surprise you. Sidewalk is a confusing term, but it refers to a large Amazon-run network comparable to Apple's Find My iPhone system. You may see headlines about how Amazon is going to share your internet with your neighbors, which may bring to mind the idea of your neighbor's television suddenly connecting to your home Wi-Fi and using it for hours of streaming the same way that your own phone or computer does. That's not the case. Think of it this way. If you have a recent Echo Dot at the very edge of your home internet connection, in that spotty, frustrated range where you constantly lose service, it might compensate by trying to connect to your neighbor's Amazon device. If there's a device in range, it can send some data through your neighbor's internet connection to keep your usage smooth. What it really is a way to connect a bunch of devices together, says John Callis, the Director of Technology Products at the EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation. It seems to be a way to primarily do two things, one being to help get a device up and running in a place where you might not have good Wi-Fi coverage. For example, he speculates that a weather station at the edge of your own network might route data through your network's neighbor's network. The second use case he adds is for doing tasks like helping to locate a tile tracker that could be strapped onto one of your pets or keys or you dropped somewhere else. So that's why Amazon's creating sort of a mesh network between all of its users and all of their devices, which will allow you to extend the usage of your tile trackers and things like that. And of course, you certainly will be able to opt out if you should ever be able to find the hidden turn off switch, which they clearly
It's
do
like
not.
impossible. It's like
Yeah.
impossible because the Ring cameras are on it too.
Yep.
And like they tell you, oh, if you want to disable it, go to this step, but you can't go any further.
Yep. Yeah.
It's like hell.
Yeah. But by the way, he's not joking because it was just revealed 48 hours ago that Google employees internally were discussing how they need to make it more difficult to hide the data tracking, geographic tracking of Android users. And that was now brought up in a court case. So those are now court documents that document those Google employees having that conversation. And so that's part of the hot water that Google's now finding themselves in. Amanda.
So
Tyler,
wild.
it also says, sorry, Michael, actually, I'm allowed to cut you off. But anyways, but Tyler, it does say you have to opt out of it rather than in if
Correct.
you go down a little further. And so, yeah, I think that's something to watch for everyone because that's not being blasted. So you are automatically opted in.
Right.
There are some actually really major issues when you think about it, right? Because if you're trusting your neighbor's internet, they could easily have a fake it sounds weird, but like have a fake internet on their side, right?
Oh,
And
Right.
all of a sudden you're no longer dealing with trusted parties, but the device thinks it's trusted. So
True.
now your neighbors are listening to your echoes. Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. That's an interesting point.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
That's a wild
Didn't
idea.
even stop. Yeah, didn't even stop to think about that one.
I think we got ourselves a hacker, everybody.
That actually calls for some Mulder and Scully, Tyler.
I think we got a hacker in the room.
There we go. This is Michael and Amanda.
I think we know who just cracked the oil pipeline. Chris, where were you on the night of June 1st when the oil pipeline hack was going on?
Listening to you, Tyler.
Okay.
That's actually a good answer.
But were you multitasking?
Yes.
I know you did.
He sent his bot.
Yeah. Indigo Blue just sent in an article that I'm retweeting from the BBC that Twitter Blue. Well, how ironic is that? The Twitter account is named Indigo Blue, and the headline is Twitter Blue subscription service launches in Australia and Canada, according to the BBC. And I can confirm they are correct, that Twitter's new subscription service, which is about $3 per month, has now gone live, as was announced by the product manager, Kayvon, on my friend's podcast, Mr. Jason Calacanis, about 24 hours ago. And you can listen to Kayvon actually turn on the campaign as part of that podcast called This Week in Startups, which Jason and I started together in his backyard. And those of you who follow that podcast religiously remember me as the producer of the first 300 episodes of This Week in Startups. And I came back for the 1,000th episode back in December, and I will be part of the 2,000th episode. And Jason, by the way, was the first co-mod of Tech News Around the World on the very first show of Tech News Around the World. Little Tech News Around the World trivia for you. So what else do we got here? Renjith is sharing an article that Clubhouse eyes digital payment space in India. Oh my goodness, this is some breaking news, y'all.
Oh, we haven't heard that in a minute.
Welcome to Tech News Around the World. We've got breaking news with Tyler.
So this just in from our correspondent, Renjith, originally from India. Here we go, folks. This is coming in from Tech Observer, a publication in India that says the headline, Clubhouse eyes digital payment space in India to roll out new payments feature soon. That is the headline that you can now see on our Twitter account at TNATW. Invite-only chat app Clubhouse is eyeing digital payment space in India. The company may soon launch its payment features in India, allowing its users to pay creators for shows they host in its platform. This feature is already live in the US. According to top company sources, the social media platform is also putting in order new work code rules in India to comply with new IT rules in the country. Right now, our startup it's still small staff-wise. Right now, we are just over a year old, and I don't think that the government has laid out all the details around how these laws will apply to companies at different stages. But our goal is to work to ensure that the platform is in line with the country's laws and regulations. And so that's absolutely on our radar and something we'll be working towards, says Rohan Seth, co-founder of Clubhouse. As per data, Clubhouse's Android app, Clubhouse's Android app, launched recently, has so far been downloaded more than 1 million times in India. Globally, the social media platform has witnessed 2.6 million downloads so far, according to app analysts analytics platform called Sensor Tower. Paul Davidson, co-founder and CEO of Clubhouse, said, "We want to roll out basic payments in coming months, followed by other payment features. The company is also working on launching tips and subscriptions."
So now it's only US and then going on to India.
Yes, but the subscriptions part is not even live in the US yet. So thank you for that share, Renjith. And you already have 4 retweets on that, which is great. And next one up, Sequoia is sharing a headline from TechCrunch that TikTok just gave itself permission to collect biometric data. Sequoia, you're about 2 hours late to this party, my friend. We just covered that before you arrived, but indeed, TikTok just gave itself permission to collect what they're calling a face scan and a voice scan using your camera and your microphone. And why would they do that? Well, glad you asked. It's because they want that juicy data from your beautiful face and your sexy voice so that they can use that to target you ads, because they are becoming an ad network and they're partnering with businesses. And here's how it works. All of the small businesses all around the world are finding it very hard to get onto Amazon. And TikTok understands that. So TikTok's making it super simple for your aunt and uncle and cousin and brothers and sisters to make their little cupcake shops and bike shops and shoe shops on TikTok. But who are they going to sell their cupcakes and bikes and in sweatpants to, you might ask? Well, that's why TikTok needs to build an ad platform, and they need to learn the data of their users. They know that they generally know very little about you. Unlike Facebook, where you have told Facebook lots and lots about you, TikTok knows very little about you unless they can scan your face and turn on your microphone. And then when they scan your face, they will know an incredible amount about you. How? Well, using image recognition algorithms, they can detect from your face your gender, your age, your geographical origin, whether you're homosexual or heterosexual, whether you're Republican or Democrat. Yes, from your face, from a photo. They can also detect, if they look closely, if you have a good camera on the front of your phone, on the selfie camera. If you have one of the more new phones with a really good camera, like the new iPad Pro, they could also detect if you have physical health issues like Parkinson's disease or obesity. Also, if you have mental health issues like depression or PTSD or autism. Also, personality characteristics. Also, your level of sleepiness and your drug consumption, if you've recently consumed alcohol or tobacco or cocaine or MDMA or cannabis and other interesting things. And that's why, as the headline says, thank you, Sequoia, that TikTok just gave itself permission to collect biometric data on U.S. citizens, which they are calling face print and voice print, and they can detect all. I just only mentioned what they can detect from the camera. They can detect all kinds of other crazy things from the microphone. So that's why it's because they're building the future of shopping, and they need to know a lot about the users so that the sellers can target the consumers on the platform. And now you know what TikTok is all about. And it's going to, by the way, TikTok is a Chinese company, more or less. And so once this really starts gaining steam, you better believe that their American competitors are going to go tell their Uncle Joe Biden, you know what, we should probably shut down this Chinese TikTok app because they're stealing our money. So you're hearing it here first, folks. In about a year, TikTok, if they are successful with this, they will get shut down in the US.
But Tyler, if indeed the headline says that TikTok has given itself permission without taking consent, I don't understand how that can go down well, considering what's happening at Facebook, in Europe and the
Correct.
UK at the moment.
Yes, well, it's because the U.S. is a kind of Wild West capitalism and a little loose and fancy free with data collection. And it's kind of a buyer beware scenario in the U.S. We're a very litigious society, but essentially these data companies like Google, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, all of them are able to, Amazon as well, are able to, give you a terms and conditions, and it's a user license agreement, and it says you agree to let TikTok use your face and camera data and your microphone for whatever purposes we want. Simply click I agree. And these Americans who aren't really all that bright, to be honest with you, they click I agree. And next thing you know, TikTok has legally the right to do whatever they want because you just agreed that they did. And that's how it works in the US. And the problem is in the EU says, not so fast. Not so fast, TikTok. You're not going to pull that trick on our citizens. And America doesn't do that. But the EU does. And that's why the EU is now telling Facebook, hang on a second there, Mark. Hold on a second. Let's unpack what just happened here. You just tricked a bunch of people into giving you data, and they didn't know it, and we're going to fix that. But America isn't really set up the same way. They're not as concerned about data privacy protections, yada yada yada. But
Got it.
yeah,
Got it. So
Tyler,
you
this is
don't
Michelle
believe
speaking.
that the
I
US
just
is
want
going to
to
go the EU rule?
they may eventually, but if they, in the case of TikTok, they'll actually shut down TikTok just for being Chinese before they ever do it for those other reasons. Yeah.
I just want to add context to the difference between what we call off-site activity and on-site. So on-site is what's happening within an app, and it's not regulated as when you're clicking to go outside of TikTok, for instance.
Great point.
So the regulation applies to when you land into a third-party website. So anything you may do within that ecosystem will not necessarily be regulated.
Right. For example, FaceTime on your phone uses your face to unlock the phone. So clearly they're using your face in a very useful way, and they're using the data of your face to do something very powerful, which is unlock your goddamn phone. Well, that stays on the phone. It never leaves the phone. So it's not an issue of data leaking or privacy issues at all. So that's the point of what she's calling offsite and onsite. What the problem is when you start moving that data of your face and between apps. If it's within your own app, I guess the more that you share that data, the more kind of legal thin ice you start walking on. So it's a very valid point that Michelle's trying to keep us all educated.
Yeah, and also that's what the whole social shopping, you will see it happening. You make your purchase within each of these environment and you never leave those. Right. So the basket will be in there and everything.
Yep. 1,000%. And that's another really great point that Michelle is incredibly consistent with making amazing points. And the point she's making there is to make this all work, you're going to stay in TikTok. And by the way, I'll send you a screenshot tomorrow or next time we meet, because here in Thailand, they're doing this already, where when you're watching a video on TikTok of these, Korean pop stars dancing around, all of the garments that they're wearing, the dress and the shoes and the shirts and the wristband and the hair clips, are all for sale while you're watching the video. You literally just click on them. There's little dots on each of the items, and those dots are clickable, and that brings up the item, and you can see the price of the item, and you can click buy without ever leaving the video. And that's to that point, is you're staying on site, and they don't need to share that data outside with some third-party fulfillment system or other. It's all based internally, and that's what part. But it's also part of what makes the high click-through rates and lowers shopping cart abandonment and all that. You want to make it a very one-click, super simple, keep everybody on the same page as much as possible to have the better e-commerce experience. But now it's a win-win. The consumer likes that experience better, but so does the, what do we call it? The seller, the creator, the content creator who made that TikTok video also now gets the analytics and the data. TikTok's also making that part. So as a content creator, and no doubt Facebook will do this as well, YouTube will do this as well, and they will, and by the way, Clubhouse eventually will do it as well, and Shopify is going to do it as well, or Spotify will also do it, which is they're going to show their creators on their apps. Twitter's doing this right now, that says, hey, here's all the people who saw your content. Here's all the analytics. Here's the pieces of content you made that had e-commerce or items for sale. And here's all the number of clicks it got. Here's how many people actually bought the item. Here's how much you made from it. And so people are going to monetize their reach and their influence on these social networks. And you are now going to monetize. You're chasing, instead of chasing likes and followers, you're chasing dollars, and you're selling actual products and services rather than just selling how beautiful your sandwich is or your smoothie. You're going to actually sell the smoothie, not just the fact that you get to, are so privileged to enjoy, a hand squeezed orange juice. Or, it's kind of a whole different can of worms that will be reaching. You'll be seeing it all very shortly, as we are now in Thailand. So Katerina just shared another really interesting article from The Guardian about Amazon firing somebody, and the headline is Amazon fired him. Now he's trying to unionize 5,000 workers. His name's Christian Smalls, is taking on the fiery anti-union colossus known as Amazon, convinced that a union of only Amazon workers is the smartest way forward. And you can see the article. And we covered similar when there was an Amazon warehouse. Was it Mississippi? Does anyone remember? This is about 3 weeks ago, where they did a vote amongst the Amazon warehouse employees. And Alabama, and it took several days, and then they found out that the employees voted not to unionize, and then some journalists dug in and into the background and spoke to the employees to learn about precisely how Amazon had convinced them not to vote to unionize, and there was some really interesting revelations that came from that, and the legal sticky situation of what companies can and cannot say to their employees who are voting to unionize or not. And it's a very interesting and important concept, because if one of the ways, Amazon does have potential competitors like Shopify, and one real Achilles heel that as big as Amazon is, and it's tremendous. I mean, Jeff Bezos until 2 days ago was the richest person in the world in some capacity. It kind of bounces between Elon Musk and him and the guy from LVMH. And if the Achilles heel that Amazon has, and it's a tremendously huge Achilles vulnerability, is if they do manage to unionize. And that's a very real possibility. And my God, would that make the value of Amazon drop like a rock if one of those locations one of the warehouses were managed. And it wasn't that far off that one vote. I mean, it was kind of, I believe it was 36% to 64%, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So if it had managed to get 50% and they did unionize, one really wonders what the hell would have happened. It's very possible Amazon would have literally shut the entire factory down and just said, all of you are fired, and the factory is shut down. End of discussion. And why do we know that? Well, because that's what happened to Walmart. There was a Walmart location. I don't quite remember where it was precisely, but that location,
they closed down the warehouse. Yeah, effectively. And
the day after the vote came in, they celebrated. They went home, had some champagne, came to work the next day to find out the factory was shut down. And because the jets had flown in that night and brought private security with them. armed security and say, "Get the F off our property. You don't work here anymore." Congratulations on your union, by the way. Your union of nothing. And that's how capitalism works, my friends. And welcome to America. Thanks for playing. And
Hey, Tyler, can I say something
go
real
for it?
quick?
Yeah.
Relating to this, they got, of course, you need 50% of the votes cast, not of all the workers. So that's a technical thing to understand. Number two is these tech companies, as they get more into the brick and mortar and operational side of the business, they're getting into old capitalism, and they're going to deal with a lot of things that we old guys used to deal with. And the question is, will they be ready as it comes?
Cool. Yeah. Robert, I always appreciate your inputs here. I've got, as always, endless people sending in fantastic articles, but I'll pause to see if anyone on stage or in the audience has something they want a hot topic they want to jump in on. Feel free.
There were actually a couple of news that I found really interesting, but I think we might have covered them. There's this headline that I read about which apps actually collect the most personal data, and how they've actually categorized the collection of personal data and how they sell it. So let me actually share that article again.
Okay. Just on this, while you find that, I was just going to read a couple choice lines from this Amazon unionizing article that was just shared from The Guardian about this gentleman named Christian Smalls. It says Christian has taken on the biggest challenges of his life, still smarting from when Amazon fired him last year. The 32-year-old is spearheading an effort to unionize more than 5,000 workers at 4 Amazon facilities in Staten Island, New York, including a giant warehouse. He is taking a highly unusual route in pursuing this goal. He has founded an independent union called the Amazon Labor Union, convinced that the new union comprising only of Amazon workers is the smartest way to rally Amazon employees behind the union after the crushing defeat of an effort to unionize an Amazon warehouse in Alabama earlier this year, which we covered rather extensively as it was unfolding day by day. And he says, I believe we'll be successful because New York is a union town, and the bus drivers and the sanitation workers, the police, the firefighters, they're all unionized. Everybody is related or knows someone in a union, and he's absolutely right about that. But many labor experts say it's a long shot, considering that Smalls and his nascent union have little organizing experience or expertise and are going up against a fiercely anti-union colossus with $386 billion in annual revenue. Smalls Union is getting its funding through a GoFundMe, collecting just $4,500 thus far. And you can understand challenging the behemoth of Amazon is no small task, as Mr. Smalls is finding out. And that's what a really fun read that is. It's
Is it really Mr. Smalls?
Yeah. His name is.
This is really the little guy.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, but we may laugh now. The difference is he not only has the Amazon going against him because he's trying to create his own, he has the unions going against him. But with today's technology, he may start off small, but if he does his own, he could be a force of reckoning. And also, those of us who have been in unions before, there are issues there. They have their bureaucracy and establishment issues. So he could have something in this anti-establishment world. So keep your eye on him. May not win now, but there might be something to this.
Indeed.
You talk about Biggie Smalls?
Chris, in this case, it's maybe his cousin Chris Smalls from Staten Island. So
that was his real name.
Yeah. So there was somebody who was digging up background on which apps collect the most data.
Yeah, I just shared the article.
Okay, let's see. I've actually I'll get to that one. I'm pausing just for a minute because there's a really interesting article shared by somebody on stage with the Twitter name of Kips, and just retweeting this one out for everyone to take a look at. It's from the BBC. This is quite interesting. Everyone familiar with Norton antivirus? If Mac users probably not. Windows users most certainly are familiar with Norton antivirus.
What's a virus?
Viruses are this. There's this thing called COVID.
The reason why we're home.
Yes, and your computer apparently gets. There's a new version of COVID that your computer can get, and
It's a shame. You have to come over to Mac.
If you stand too close to your computer, you can now get this virus from your computer, and it's now jumping between computers. Anyway, so Norton Antivirus has now added Ethereum cryptocurrency mining as part of its software. And those of us who have been in this game for a while knows precisely how hilariously ironic this is, because the reason you would install Norton Antivirus is to stop people from hacking your computer. And the most common way that hackers monetize your computer is by installing systems on your computer that essentially do things like mining. And they basically turn your computer into a mining robot while you're asleep, essentially. And now Norton, the one who's stopping these hackers, is mining while you're sleeping. So, it kind of is deliciously ironic that the antivirus people are now doing what the virus people were always doing. But I assume, hopefully, they're sharing some of the earnings with you as the person. But then, why use an antivirus company to do that? Why not just mine stuff yourself when you sleep and get 100% of it? I don't know. It's a crazy idea. But anyway, that's a fun article. Thank you for sharing that one. And then Katerina is on a roll today, as usual. That from the New York Times workers themselves are fed up with the New York Times union. And this was covered by my friend Jason Calacanis on his podcast when he interviewed their tech correspondent, asking all about this. And the headline from Vice, surprisingly not from the New York Times, says New York Times workers are fed up with the New York Times union busting, because the New York Times is not unionized, right? And they don't consider their employees are not part of a union. And if they were, it could have really interesting consequences for the New York Times. And the New York Times clearly doesn't want their employees to be unionized, just like Amazon doesn't. But the New York Times is very quick to demonize Amazon for not allowing their employees to unionize, when it's rather hypocritical because they won't let their own employees unionize. Anyway, the tech workers at the New York Times are unionizing. But rather than recognizing their union, the management of the New York Times is running tactics out of union busting playbooks. In April, when the group of more than 650 software engineers, product managers, and data analysts at the New York Times tried to unionize, leadership not only declined to voluntarily recognize the union, but began to hold mandatory anti-union meetings. The strangest thing about this, according to the workers, was how contrary the current approach runs to the Times' own long-held positions on union recognizing in the stories they cover, a contradiction the paper has not addressed and seems unwilling to. And indeed, it is incredibly hypocritical and contradictory to the articles that they themselves write, just like how they criticize Amazon for not allowing their employees to unionize, and now they're not allowing their own employees to unionize. And you can, it's not the hypocrisy is just self-evident. And as this article says, the big juicy quote in 80-point font is, "It's disappointing and it's hypocritical," and obviously it is. So we will see what happens with the New York Times writers themselves. Thank you to Katerina.
To their fairness, I wanted to add that Vice itself it's kind of hypocritical themselves about how they fire people, because my husband was IT director there. So just to add that in fairness to everyone, but yeah, it's interesting.
And then Cheryl just shared a great article that Hyundai is now making hydrogen fuel celled semi-trucks. So the hydrogen thing seems to be picking up steam, no pun intended. Sorry, that was too
You gotta
easy.
amuse yourself.
Never
sometimes.
apologize for jokes like that.
Katerina, yet again, bringing in a juicy headline from the Times UK, scientists have created a new type of cell capable of producing substances such as plastics and medicine in a way not seen in the natural world. And this is indeed one of, just like genetic engineering and artificial suns and quantum computing, one of the truly, truly world-changing technologies on our horizon, which is all of this protein folding, ability to grow all kinds of unimaginable things with proteins. You can essentially create plastics and really an endless things that, the imagination kind of has to stretch to even think about all of the things that will be possible. And so the headline says man-made cells that produce plastics and oh man, the article just died. That man-made plastics and medicines hailed as a revolution in biology. And indeed it is. Scientists have created a new type of cell capable of producing substances. At the Cambridge University researchers, among many others, by the way, believe that the breakthrough could lead to the development of new molecules that could form biodegradable plastics, which, yes, that's already happening, and drugs, including antibiotics. That's happening too. This is potentially a revolution in biology. Professor Jason Chin from the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology, who led the study, said it may be possible to produce a whole new set of polymers that are inaccessible through traditional synthetic chemistry and natural biology. And he's absolutely right. Researchers also discovered that their new cell, a type of bacteria, is resistant to infection by viruses. And this is one of the headlines that is huge in the kind of med tech space that has not really made it over much into the traditional geeky startup space. But just like quantum computing and AI and VR, this is one of the things that's going to change the world fundamentally in ways that we just can't even begin to imagine yet. And it's how these cells are going to be able to be engineered to make unimaginable number of alternatives to plastics and medicines and all kinds of things. We're essentially going to create, it gives us almost, it sounds crazy to say, but godlike capabilities, kind of mastering the development in the same way that we mastered code and how to do things in computer with code. We're now fucking with biological code in a similar way. So we're going to be able to program physical things the same way we've been able to program computers, if that makes sense.
And we'll also be able to make meat cheaper and better than the way we do it today. And that'll actually be a great thing for the climate.
Exactly.
And we can create them to digest pollutants in the water and so on in the environment.
Exactly right. They making organisms that eat plastic as their own source of fuel. Exactly. As both those are both two great examples out of hundreds, and that's what's so absolutely mind-bendingly amazing about what's on the horizon.
I shared also the carbon capture.
Okay, I'm still climbing in the chronological order here, so
yep.
I'm now
There's just one article related exactly to the CO2 capture by ocean and the ocean by making seashells.
Okay, hold on, we'll get there. So Heyman has one that was a joke. Katerina's got one about Facebook to end. We covered this in the other time zone, which you can see by clicking on the title of this room. Well, we have a schedule where we meet twice a day, and then you'll also see all of the upcoming rooms. And there's a room coming up in just about an hour after this room.
Yeah.
Yep. And so this article that I just tweeted from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW, which you can see, by the way, all of these fantastic articles that Katerina and other people are sharing and that I'm retweeting, you can click on and save and retweet and follow up later and do these deep dives on these topics. This is one where we're certainly going to have a conversation. It's about Facebook to end the long time exception made for politicians who break their own kind of guidelines that normal people are being kind of suspended and banned for. Politicians are exempted and able to say things that normal people are not. And now Facebook is ending that long time exception, and politicians are now going to be considered just like everybody else. And I guess the question is that, do people think that's the right way to go? But before we make that decision, it would be great if our friend Michelle from Facebook could maybe provide a little additional context if she's still in the room. It looks like she's not. So we will go ahead and run amok without Michelle in the room. Anyone have a strong take on whether or not Facebook should think of politicians as regular people, or should they be exempted from Facebook's policies around kind of what those users are able to say?
They need to be checked like everyone else. Period.
Anyone feel that they should be exempted? Or we have a one-sided stage here?
Candidates are different, right? So we said that. You said that.
Well, this is where it gets into the Trump issue, where Donald Trump is going to become a political candidate running for a political office of the presidency. And as a candidate in America, candidates need to be given equal airtime, although that's debatable if it applies to social networks. It's certainly true of news organizations and newspapers and things like this, but it gets very tricky.
I mean, equal airtime is fine, but but to be reckless in your rhetoric, no.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like what we see with the narrative with the COVID, the laboratory making and everything, how they handle this. Like, I don't know. They build they said back in the days that it was a fake news, and then they just switching. I don't know. I mean, when you start doing this, you start doing controlling the news, the narrative always, and I don't know.
Yeah, that was the point that came up about 2 days ago, where Facebook made a policy change 48 hours ago that says they're no longer going to be removing posts about the lab leak theory. Now that there's more sort of interesting clues about the potential of COVID originating at the Wuhan laboratory, it's not conclusive. We're not making any judgments. It's just that Biden himself is saying we need to have another investigation. And while that investigation is going, it wouldn't make sense for Facebook to not, block people from pontificating on that point. So that does, though, people did raise the point, just as Jean-Francois did, that, well, now that clearly is an example that Facebook's able to dictate the narratives on their platform. And why is that important? Well, because if Facebook is able to control the narratives on their platform, they become a publisher. That's what a publisher is. And
this law was there for that, yeah.
And the law, the Section 230, if you are a publisher, then you become responsible for everything on your platform. And that means you can be, your executives can be jailed and fined and everything else if you are a publisher. And the definition of a publisher is you control the narrative on your platform. And Facebook says, no, we are not a publisher. We're a platform. We don't control the narratives on this platform. We are not a publisher. Hell no, are we a publisher? Please, sweet God Jesus, no, baby Jesus, we are not a publisher.
This is going to be a case of damned if they do, damned if they don't, and they won't do anything right. So
correct.
If someone is reckless with their rhetoric and it incites violence, the people are going to go out with their torches. If they do keep them from speaking, then they're damned again. So they're screwed either way.
Yes. But I almost think that somebody might be pushing them into the position of accepting the fact that they are a publisher.
That is true.
Considering the alternatives. And it's you're right. They're being pushed into a corner. I'm just wondering if it's being done in a very Machiavellian kind of genius, intentional way on behalf of somebody. I wonder who. Evan,
Tyler, sorry, there was a law case that might be of interest to shed light on that. In the United Kingdom, we have a high-profile guy called Martin Lewis, runs a company called Money Saving Expert. He successfully took Facebook to court, this is within the last few months, because his face image was being used by so many advertisers on Facebook to promote fairly dodgy products and services of a financial sector background. And they had to prove they weren't a publisher and they were not responsible for allowing these advertisers to use his face and his image in an improper way. And he won. So it might be worth looking at that, because it did all fall along the question of whether Facebook were a publisher and whether they had an accountability for the use of this content.
Right. It's a huge issue.
This is Gabby. I wanted to add that when Mark Zuckerberg was getting cross-examined in the hearing on the Hill here in the United States against congressmen and congresswomen, they asked him specific questions as to whether Facebook was amongst teenagers, bullying, a number of issues, and Mark would not answer the question regarding his potential responsibility, I guess because he had his lawyer nearby. And so it seems like, he dodged these questions back in March, but now it's coming back in another form.
Yeah. Well, it's a developing scenario at the moment, and there will be more headlines in the days and weeks to come, which we will eagerly jump into as they get published. But the important thing is to follow the development of it over time, because that's where it gets really interesting. Singular headlines themselves, are of interest, but it's when you're able to connect the dots forward and backward in time that you really start to see how these strings of dots even intersect with other strings of dots. And then that's where this multi-dimensional puzzle comes into play. The more that you join us here each day, it does become a bit of an addicting process. And that's why
if I may, make two suggestions. And to your point, to follow the development, you can also do it on your Twitter by, replying to yourself with a new development on the original tweet that you are, looking into the specific topic. That's one way of me following it, since I'm not an expert on many things. So for me to be generally informed about it, that's how I do it. And then the other suggestion I was going to make was, maybe you have done it already, Tyler. Do you have a regular lawyer in here, specifically the ones that address litigation about libel and defamation of characters? Maybe that might work with the Facebook thing. No?
I don't understand the point you're trying to make.
Which one? The first one or the second one?
Either of them.
Okay. You want me to rephrase it?
Sure.
Okay. My first point was that if you are suggesting that we follow the topics, another way of doing it so we don't have to memorize everything or to keep in mind everything is to find the tweets that is a development of the original topic, and then you do it as a thread. Okay. Basically, you tweet the development as a response to your original tweet, right, and so on and so forth. That's one way of doing it.
That would be incredibly difficult. Yeah. It's a great, fine idea. Well, you can try that and let's see how it goes.
Well, I've been doing it.
Okay,
I've been doing it. So.
What's your second one? Diva, what's your second point?
The second point was, if you don't have someone yet in the room who is a litigation person or expert, and now I'm now losing it. Okay, let me track back. This is where the anxiety comes in. When you have a litigation person that can shed light on this, like someone who is an expert on libel and defamation because of the Facebook topics that you've been talking about. Does that make sense?
No. What does Facebook topic have to do with libel?
Well, you were just talking about this. What was that? Somebody's saying something.
Michelle, your microphone isn't working properly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So, okay. Well, did anybody get me?
No.
By any chance?
The second. No. What does the lawyer have to do with Facebook on the second point?
Because somebody was just saying, like before me, and I'm not looking at my phone, that because Zuckerberg was just right beside a lawyer, and the lawyer was basically defending him. But if somebody can counterpoint that while we're discussing it, then that's something else.
I see his cross-examination and what he said during his cross-examination. Generally, the lawyer part for our exercise can be a little bit helpful from time to time. Yeah, so that would be great if there was a tech lawyer who ended up joining the conversation. Yeah, that would be nice. So if you know one, please go ahead and invite them in. Yes, go ahead.
I've got a report from heaven sort of thing. So Facebook apparently has been testing out the prayers post feature in their app. And now people can post their prayers and wishes on Facebook under each of the groups, like the religious groups. And then the users can actually respond back with their, like whether the prayer was answered or something else like that. So I'm just wondering, this is like really getting into the deep details about your desires and needs.
Oh, right. Oh, that's interesting. So Facebook is encouraging its users to share their prayers?
Yep, within their Facebook groups of like churches and everything else. Because of the COVID pandemic, everyone was pretty much home, right? So now they're actually allowing them to share that stuff.
Well, this gets kind of interesting because... Yeah, hold on one second, Sylvan. Facebook's value traditionally is what they call their social graph, the connections between the users, right? Who your friends are, your business associates, and yada, yada. And that was what was unique to Facebook initially. And then Google's graph is what they call the interest graph, you and all the things you're interested in. And that Google monetizes their interest graph. Facebook monetizes the social graph. And what you're describing is more like Facebook is starting to dabble into the interest graph a little bit, where it talks about things they have interests in, assumedly. Depends on what their prayers are about exactly. I wonder if that data will be used.
Those are the most vulnerable points, right?
Yeah.
So that's the most vulnerable point that a person can be in if they're desperate for something.
I doubt they will use that as part of their ad network, which Michelle is going to confirm here momentarily. Michelle? She's having trouble with her mic today.
If she's not on, I have a thought to this. Again, this is my cruel capitalist mind.
Okay.
But one of the things, there was a number of religious organizations that were not using social media prior to COVID that became heavily dependent on Facebook and got a lot of their users and members at all ages on it. Also, a lot of these churches had difficulty raising money, multi-billion-dollar industry. So they may be wanting you to add your prayers, but as we get out of COVID, it might be a way for them to retain some of these people and also help some of these places start running their funds through Facebook too.
Interesting. I think good share, Heyman. I'm looking for it. Where is it? I'm not seeing your share here, although you just shared a whole bunch in a row, which makes it very difficult to find. But my apologies. I'll find that eventually, and when I do find it, I'll reshare it. But just going back in more chronological order, Heyman had an article about Ron Paul, the ultimate libertarian, is at the Bitcoin conference. Indeed, he's one of the speakers there, along with Jack Dorsey and others. And Jack Dorsey, at the event just seconds ago, on his own Twitter account, revealed that Square, his fintech company, is launching a hard, cold crypto wallet, which is one of the things I had predicted a few months back. And one of our former mods in this room, named Andreas, is talking with me and Michael and Cal and Cheryl and others, and he took a screenshot of it, and he said, just as you predicted 2 months ago. which is yeah, it's interesting to see how Square continues to develop as a company and the products and services that they're going to do incredibly interesting things later in 2021 that are going to blow people's minds. But that's true of a lot of the neobanks like Square, Stripe as well. There's so much potential because they're data companies that are getting into finance, and then they can get into other things as well once they've got a good foothold into finance that traditional banks are just too slow to expand into. So stay tuned for that. Other interesting...
Speaking... Yeah. I'm going to have to get going pretty soon. So one thing about Twitter is they made climate change a, quote, topic, unquote.
Okay.
And that's going to promote more accurate climate information if you want to follow it as a topic, because I guess the folks that get to post in that are real climate scientists and things like that, not the deniers. So that's... I don't exactly know where that's going to go, but that's something I think had happened like yesterday or the day before. So that's important. And I'll also make a plug since I have to get ready for, I have in 1 hour from now interviewing Hank Rogers. And many of you would know Hank is the guy who owns Tetris, call him the Tetris Titan. He also, there's a movie being made about him starring Taron Egerton, the guy who played Elton John in Rocket Man. So it's kind of a serious movie about his life suing the Russians about Tetris and things. But we'll be talking, we'll talk a little bit about that because it's kind of fun. We're also going to be talking about what Hank does now, which is promoting renewable energy around the world. He was like single-handedly bringing it to Hawaii for a while, and now he's going around the world doing that. So we'll be talking about his role in that. So it should be a fun discussion covering a little bit more than just climate change, starting an hour from now. Anyway, thanks.
Yep, very cool. Thank you, Dan. Somebody else?
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Suzanne.
Hey,
You had
Suzanne, welcome
asked
back.
if there was a tech lawyer, so I was pinged in. So what kind of help do you need from the tech lawyer?
Well,
but not really. I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm not giving you any kind of legal guidance.
Yeah, somebody just made the point that, from time to time, Diva was making the point that it would be good from time to time to have, more legal kind of perspective on things. And actually, Jennifer, who joins us each day, traditionally does that, and she's not here today, which is why Diva thought that would be a good idea.
Gotcha.
So if you don't mind hanging out.
Sure. Sure. But you're going to have to tell me to come back because I'm trying to work together. So let me know, make sure to write down the question and I'll answer it.
Will do. Thank you. Oh my God, it's an endless waterfall of headlines that you guys are sending my way here through the Tech News Twitter account. It's a bit overwhelming, I must admit. Wow, it's they're fast and furious over here. The what do we got here? Heyman sent in one about a company called Synchron raises $40 million to trial neurotech that helps paralysis patients text, email, and shop online assumedly with just their brain. Is that right, Heyman?
Yes. So it's basically an implant. Unlike the others, this actually is a non-invasive. You know how we get we put the catheters inside heart, the stents inside heart coronary arteries.
Mm-hmm.
So the same thing. Principle, you put it inside the brain vessels through the jugular vein, and this has sensors in it that could be read by a Bluetooth based device that's put over your chest, just like a pacemaker position, and then it syncs up to your phone, which they call it the Brain OS
How's
platform.
that non-invasive? Did you say non-invasive? Like,
it's technically considered non-invasive.
But how's it get into that?
Because we're not talking
like brain?
Right. It's basically a little cut in your jugular vein.
Yes, so that's pretty invasive.
So it is, but not as invasive as what people consider like surgery and taking like brain implant, right? So it's less invasive. Wow. Let's say less invasive.
Just so I can do my shopping like in a more efficient way, or how's that?
Well, that's what they say. The apps are for text messaging, sending mail, banking, and shopping. Remember, these are for patients with paralysis, right?
Oh,
so
that's
patients
fair.
Who
yeah,
can't
no, that's good. Yeah.
So they have accessibility to living, basically, conducting their daily activities, daily living. So that's what.
No, that's good. That's the use case. Okay, I got it.
And they're using it in human trials in Australia presently, and the FDA has given them approval.
Okay, and then Jordan in the audience just shared or maybe he's on stage, just shared a great one. And welcome back, Kieran, to the stage. Jordan shared one from MIT. The world's first digital fabric can collect, store, and process data. And you just have to see this to believe it. It's very cool looking, I have to say. This, what they're calling a digital fabric, and MIT would be the kind of place to do this. It says, while the fabrics we wear today might keep us warm and protect us from the elements, scientists continue to demonstrate how they might soon do far more than that. MIT scientist named Joel Fink has been at the cutting edge of this field for more than a decade and has just made a significant breakthrough demonstrating the first ever digital fabric fiber that can store and process information among other some other exciting functions. And that is a terrible typo. Among some other exciting functions. from stretchable fabrics that power wearables with sweat, which we covered recently, that there's even a wearable device that is powered by your sweat, the chemical reaction from your own salt in your sweat, to shirts that harvest energy from movement, and wearable LED fibers that could form wearable displays. The field of smart textiles is one brimming with exciting possibilities. Fink at MIT and his colleagues demonstrated an interesting one around developing fibers that detect sound and can be woven into fabric to turn it into a sensitive microphone. And now Fink's team has broken further ground in this area. They describe the electronic fibers that have been developed so far as analog, in that they can carry a continuous electronical signal but not digital information, which would be processed in ones and zeros. To bring this kind of capability to textile fibers, the MIT team had to get creative, but assumedly now they have. They show a close-up image of this digital fiber, which they're now, you can think of it as like incredibly thin digital glass fiber, and they're using that digital thin glass fiber like thread, and they're making garments out of these threads. So this your garment can transfer data. If you can, it's hard to imagine it until you see the photos, which are part of this article from New Atlas that I just retweeted from the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. So thank you for that one to Jordan.
And almost by magic, Gene's from MIT has just joined us. So.
Oh yeah, welcome, Gene. Are you familiar with this digital fabric?
Yeah, I know. Yoel's a colleague. He used to run the Advanced Functional Fabric, the AFOA, Advanced Functional Fabrics of America Center at MIT, which is kind of one of the public-private partnership, part of that Manufacturing USA thing that we do across many different categories. So he is the functional fabrics guy at MIT, a real innovative, smart dude.
Very cool.
Can I ask a question
on that one? Sure.
It's kind of a joke of mine, but not really. Like, is there also something like an octopus type of skin where you can adapt to the surroundings? I believe this would be probably very in the interest of the military, but also I think it would be incredibly cool. Is there something like this being developed to like imitate how octopus skin can adapt to the surrounding and hide there?
Are you asking Gene?
Yeah, are you asking me? I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't.
There are.
I'm not a fabrics guy.
There is.
Yeah.
I'll tweet it out for you guys.
Yeah, let's do some Googling, and if you find it, let me know and I'll retweet it. Jordan also just shared another really interesting article that was referenced earlier about the apps. These apps collect the most personal data, and you have to see this graph organized by PC Mag. It says, tired of your favorite apps grabbing your personal data and selling it to third parties? Take a look at these privacy-focused alternatives, and then they go into showing which apps collect the most data from you, ranked, and they show which data they collect and which ones collect the most. And the most notable, one of the most notable, is Gmail. It collects a lot of data about you. But there's one that is even collects more data than Gmail. Anyone take a guess what it is?
Twitter?
Facebook.
And somebody's got a really soft mic. No, Mint, the fintech company started by my friend Aaron Pratzer. Mint collects the most data. Second, according to this, would be Gmail. Other very notable ones is Coinbase, the photo app VSCO, YouTube, Google Chrome, and the Weather Channel. And this was a study by a company called PC Cloud, concluded that social media and food delivery apps sell the most personal data to third-party advertisers. But a recent survey showed that 4 out of 5 people don't want their personal data collected or shared without their permission. If you're sick of invasive data collection, what are the best alternatives? And they go in to highlight all the best alternatives. And then they go into the social media apps, kind of comparing which ones collect the most. And in that case, Facebook and Instagram come in first place, followed by LinkedIn, then TikTok, then Twitter, then a bunch of apps you've never heard of.
Tyler, do you think that one day we'll get to a stage where those apps you've just mentioned are actually remunerating the consumer to resell their data so that there's some sort of a revenue share?
Yeah, that's already starting right now. Because of the sensitivity around data, there are apps that have that business model. And thus far, they've not been that successful. So it's not looking overly optimistic that there'll be a dramatic shift to that type of a model anytime soon. And that's kind of congruent with legacy apps of the internet, even in the Web 1.0 and the Web 2.0 eras. There were also apps who tried to pay the users for using the apps. And for some reason, those apps very consistently die. Somebody should
But they might be pushed by regulation eventually. What we're seeing in Europe,
right,
seems to go into that direction.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I can imagine in Europe, Margaret Vestager in Denmark could come up with something like that, where there could be, paying the users for their data. But this opens up a whole can of worms around the blockchainification of your sovereign data. And ultimately, you control your data, and the apps have to ask you for access to your storage of data. And you can say, I'm not sure if I want to give you my data or not. And it's a much more conscious thing. They're pulling the data from you with your knowledge rather than pulling it from you without your knowledge, as they do today. Amanda?
Tyler, what about the program Amazon, and forgive me, I don't remember the name, where they're basically paying with gift cards and things for you to speak about the competitor shopping you're doing. So basically, if you're shopping outside of Amazon, you give them that information and they reward you with gift cards and other incentives.
Yep, there's always been interesting attempts at kind of flipping the business models, but the conventional business models of taking all of your data kind of without the users really understanding is the most successful business models, for reasons that are kind of sadly now becoming more obvious to people in this room, but are still just completely misunderstood or not understood by the average users.
Yeah, but again, it seems like these days are over. At least in Europe, it seems that these days are over,
not over. They're just going into the courthouses to the point of Facebook is now.
You're right.
So they're going into court. Then the question is, the problem is in America, if this were to ever go to court, and it's unlikely that it ever would, that because of the nature of the U.S. legal system, Facebook and Google are now the biggest campaign contributors and have the biggest lobbying budgets in Washington, D.C., and will likely be able to influence the legislation in a very creative way that's actually in their favor. And it looks like they're being regulated when in reality, they're creating moats that make it harder for future competitors to replace them. And that's truly genius, by the way. But in the EU system, I don't think is as susceptible to that kind of political maneuvering. So it'll be very interesting to see the outcome of this EU and UK antitrust case with Facebook. But I have to assume it'll be a large fine. Traditionally, what happens is the EU gives Apple a big fine for billions of dollars, and Apple and their lawyers laugh themselves silly on their way out of the courtroom because they could give a shit about $10 million.
Yeah, but don't you think that what is called the digital wallet that we spoke about yesterday could become the recipient of all these personal data?
Right, that's right. And then you have the EU is the big data boss.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And then that opens up a whole other can of worms, because now the conservative Christians who've read Revelations chapter 13 since they were 10 years old in Sunday school realize that EU wallet sounds exactly like what the Apostle John was writing about in Revelations chapter 13. And you're going to have every Christian screaming from every church top saying this is the mark of the beast. Because in fact, that's what it does look like.
Yeah.
And every church,
so it's not all done yet.
Every church on this Sunday is going to be talking precisely about this headline of this new EU digital wallet that is only authenticated by your eye and your fingerprint. Well, just as the Apostle John said in 70 AD.
Yeah, and we've also discovered that most Europeans are willing to give power to AI and trust AI more than governments. So you're right to say that it's unlikely people will give away the power to the governments.
Yeah, well, the Spaniards, 66% of Spaniards just were 3,000 Europeans were surveyed. Would they replace their parliamentary members with AIs? The Spaniards were most willing to, with 66% saying that they would, followed by the Italians. In last place was the UK. And then outside of the EU, the Chinese were the most globally with 70%, and Americans were amongst the lowest internationally. So it's really interesting space to watch. And we had X from Google, from the AI team, on stage here 3 or 4 or 5 days ago. And she said she thinks this will happen in our lifetimes, that we'll have AIs replacing government folks. And in fact, somebody shared a headline of where this is actually already happening in the form of court cases, where they're starting to let AIs decide court cases, the outcomes of court cases. And I think that's actually the path forward. Is you don't have to go right to the highest, most powerful seat in the land. You could start off in very small, trivial kind of cases and see how the AI does at handling, parking tickets and things like this first. You take it in baby steps. Yeah.
Estonia.
Tyler,
Yeah.
on this Revelation 13 you talked about yesterday as well.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's not metaphorical? It's like more sort of like a physical manifestation of it. What's your take on it?
On what do I think John meant in his visions in the cave?
Tell us, please. Yeah, I mean, there should be a physical manifestation of it, whereas in this AI perspective, we are looking at it metaphorically.
Well, Bitcoin, in a sense, is
Tyler, I need to know.
There's no physical stuff on it. So,
and that's
Karam?
the very
Please,
heart of it.
High Priest Tyler Crowley, enlighten us with your insightful views about what John saw in the cave.
Yes, Boris.
Please. No, but there were like 5 heads and like 12 hands and,
7
that kind
heads.
of thing.
Karam, please.
7 heads.
It was 7 heads. Let's not get crazy with 5 heads. It was 7 heads. And
sure.
Yeah, get your visions correct here. Let's not. It's a super fancy. Everyone should go read it just because it's a really.
But Tyler, I just wanted to comment on this real quick. So I have a hard time believing that Europeans are going to have an issue with this. I don't know. I'm living, of course, in the Nordics, but I can see.
Have you been to Poland? Have you been to Poland recently, Asek?
Right. But okay, so there are going to be some countries that are going to be first movers, and the other countries are going to understand that this is just obviously the way to go.
Let me unpack this for you, Asek. According to Christians who are familiar with Revelation chapter 13, the beast who controls the buying and selling of everything through this mark, which is only
right. Okay.
Now, hang on. Asek, please let me finish the point. The beast is going to force you to accept this, or kill you if you do not. They're literally going to physically kill you if you don't accept the mark. That's what the Bible says. So these Polish Catholics, who are 99% Catholic in Poland, they are very familiar with Revelation chapter 13, I can assure you. And when they hear this proposition, they are going to recognize it as potentially what's predicted in Revelation chapter 13. And they're going to say to themselves, we know what comes next. You're going to force this on us, or you're going to kill us if we don't accept it. Because that's what the Bible says. So now you're telling me people are going to go for this?
By the way, it's similar sort of, understanding in Islamic teachings as well. So it's very close to that, what Islam actually talks about in the end of time. But it's sort of like linked to the Antichrist, but it's more sort of like, Revelation 13 is very in line with it, like apart from those 7 heads you talked about. But there is going to be a beast for sure.
No, I'll just say that EID, there's already legal structures for this. The electronic ID infrastructure. Basically, if some countries already have up and running, where you can use your electronic ID from one European country in another country, and it would be totally legit. So the legal framework is there. The technology is the next step, and some countries are already moving on this. And I think they'll be the first movers, and it'll be obviously so much better. Yes, there will be these. John 13 might be an issue for some people. Some
Revelation
countries.
13, written by John. Yeah.
Sorry. Revelation, right, might be an issue, but it's going to come, and the AI part, that's also, doing claims quickly with insurance business. I think there's already some startups doing that, arbitration, all those things with blockchain.
Yeah.
I've seen it already. It's going to be there soon.
Yeah, that's fine. Go read 13, Revelations 13, and then notice that it also calls out the fact that the whole proposition is meant as a unification. And is this not the wallet meant to be unifying all of the EU citizens in this shared data system? Indeed, it sort of is. So it has too many ways for people to get conspiratorial against it. Is my point. So it's
only after
I
Facebook
agree totally on that.
collects all the prayers. Sorry about that. You mentioned the prayers. I'm just saying.
That's a nice connection, Robert.
That was great, Robert. Yes, indeed, your Facebook prayers will be part of this EU digital wallet. That would be fantastic. Too funny.
But I think the idea is right there to be able to compete with those big companies, and I think also the idea is that as a private company, then in the EU, you will have access to those data sets, so that other companies in the future will be able to compete because they will have basically access to data, and to basically kind of a little bit democratize the market in that way.
Yeah, Revelation 13 aside, it's fantastic. Everyone's going to love it. Why would you oppose it? It's amazing.
Yeah, Tyler. I mean, you've been in Sweden a lot, and here we've had Bank ID for a long time, and it's really ridiculous. There's nothing you do anymore, whether it's logging into your insurance company or your bank account or whatever it is. You log in with your EID, and it's really on your phone, and it's like taking out all the friction. And it is absolutely mind-blowing. So, and it's spreading across the Nordics, and it's going into the other countries as well. So we'll have it.
Yeah.
And yes, we don't have a lot of Catholics here, so
no,
we're not really.
It's the most. It's the statistically the least religious country on the planet, which is probably why you have it first. But as soon
but you have a lot of Vikings.
Yeah, but
maybe that's the correlation actually. Pirates, Vikings, and not so much Christians.
Correct. Yeah, because if you start going into places with where you have majority Christians, that's where it's going to get really interesting. So we'll see.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm confused. Are you saying that there has to be a physical manifestation of the beast, or are you saying that it doesn't have to for people to believe in this? The revelation that
we're not saying neither. We're not saying either.
Okay, because I was like hearing someone earlier. So none of those.
Neither.
Okay.
It's just yeah.
You're just shooting the breeze.
We're making jokes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's okay.
Okay.
Diva, it's
thank you.
Not literal. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think it's probably just Poland, because in Portugal everyone is officially Christian and get baptized, but nobody goes to church. And I think it's very similar in Spain and in other countries.
Correct.
Like churches are closing and being turned into clubs and stuff like that. So,
same in Sweden now. Yeah, but in Poland is still very strongly Catholic and still a lot of church going. So
what would be interesting, Tyler, though, I just want to say real quick, what's going to be super interesting, though, how this is going to be applied throughout the different countries with the kind of different frameworks and logics from Hungary to Sweden to Spain, where what I've understood, some countries are very heavily on decentralization and anonymization. So basically, you can have your ID and you can create a proof of human without letting anyone know that who you are, but that you are a person. So that means that you can have a blog space, or I don't know, a social media platform for 15-year-olds, and you know that's not a 40-year-old pedophile on the other side talking with you. You really know that because you log in with your ID, but it's still anonymous. So, but then of course there might be aspects where some countries will maybe require that you cannot be anonymous, or it might require that you will always be known by the state, or all these different things become super interesting to see how it's going to play out. I know the EU is trying to be very recommend all these things, but countries are going to do whatever they want to do in the end.
No, basically,
I mean,
if you look
Germany
at it,
has a big
just
influence, and you have, as a person, if it will be translated to the digital world, as a person, you have the Vermummungsgesetz. So you're not allowed to hide your identity in the public when you walk around. So your face has to be kind of visual, like that police and cameras can detect who you are. This was done after, the Nazis. This was implemented. So if this will be translated to the digital world, and we know Germany has a lot of power in the EU, I believe that anonymization won't be, be long upheld in the digital world. That's just my prediction.
one thing you have to understand, literally just 20 years ago in UK, you didn't have the picture on your driving license, and that was the actual ID, which you would actually take to open up your bank account, get the insurance, buy a house or anything. I once traveled to Canada at that time, checked into a hotel, and I gave them that paper license, and they were saying, "Oh, what is this?" And I said, "This is my ID." And the ID used to actually say my name, address, and the signature. That's all it had. And anybody actually could use that piece of paper and claim that this is who you are. And that's just literally 20 years ago. And since then, now the driving license is the key. I mean, this is your ID, and everything is linked to it because that's what you use to open up any account. Doesn't matter what you do. You go to the bank, you get insurance, you buy a house, you buy a car. This is what you need. So everything is linked to your card, which actually has probably 35 sort of like points, which is authenticating it against certain things. So it's not very easy to actually go around with the ID. And same thing is actually happening in the US also with the star on your driving license, which is you cannot actually use a normal license to go through the airport security and everything. You have to have that specific star, which is going to be actually linked to your immigration status, your all the details in regards to whatever is in your background. So the world is slowly moving in that direction where you're going to be having that standardized, which we have on the passport, for instance, at this point in time.
Yeah,
Those very
Kuram.
passport has got their barcodes.
Do you know where it's going to happen? The change is going to happen with the jet setters when they want to go through the fast lane through the airports where they have their ticket
Precisely.
connected to their ID. So instead of pulling all, four different papers, they're just going to walk through, and everyone's going to want it because it's a hip thing to have. And it's going to be required eventually that before you get your boarding pass, you're going to have to digitally identify yourself on your phone and just kind of flash through the fast lanes in airports touchlessly.
So let me share the
And
experience of global
the
entry. So I don't know how many of you have got the global entry. I just literally walk through the gates. I mean, literally, it takes me literally about 2 minutes to actually automatically put my ID on the car on the actual machine, and just literally it takes the printout. I walk away, and it takes 45 minutes to actually wait for the luggage. But if I don't have the luggage, I'm out of the plane from the gate all the way to the out and the transportation. Literally, it takes about 20 minutes to walk through this whole thing.
Wait.
And
Are you
that's
saying wait? You mean literally?
literally, yes.
Yeah, we got it.
That was
but
mean.
but
in future, we're going to be using our TikTok account. You realize that?
but
No.
literally,
In the future, they will put a chip in your body. You just walk through. You don't have to carry
literally.
anything.
No, it's the eyes. You're just going to walk
Oh,
around like Minority
yes.
Yeah,
Reports.
Skynet will
That's the
use
one.
TikTok movement to
There you go.
recognize people. Literally.
Maybe your shadow.
Literally.
Maybe your shadow.
Guys, you
Come on,
realize that
Tyler.
that
I could do
literally has
Where's
that.
the
tickled
X
Tyler,
Files?
right? So
Well, I am waiting
Give me
for
X Files.
digital sense. Your scent. Tell me when we find out how to do digital sense.
We'll get there. Give it time.
Is that digital sins or digital sense?
Could be
How is
both,
the
but what?
digital
But
sins?
it could be both.
Oh,
What you
that
smell.
is that. Oh,
Robert,
scent.
was that
Okay.
Robert
Oh
talking?
yeah, there's tons of that in med tech. There's one that will detect cancer that a guy here Hiroshi is working on. It's very interesting. So it's coming.
Very,
But
very.
we have already biometric data, right? And when you go as an alien into the US or probably also into the EU, you will have fingerprints and your iris data being screened. So you have to look into the camera, and this data is on international passports, at least in Europe,
Yes.
and the new ones in the US. So it's already happening.
Yeah, they
And
actually
Japan's
already
already
have it
doing
at
it,
the
right?
airport. Yeah, they already have it at the U.S. airports, that clear station where you can just
Yeah,
scan
like
your eye and walk through.
And
I
we
don't
have
Yep.
think
that
they scan
in
the eye.
Europe too.
Yeah, it's an option. You can either scan your eye or do your fingerprints.
I mean,
So
and
I'm
eventually biometric data, whether it's how, the TikTok movement thing is a joke, but it isn't, because, it will identify you long before you reach that station. By the way you walk, by the way, and of course your face and eyes and everything. It will know who is coming there. You don't have to identify.
But that's
I
the
think
other.
someone mentioned that Osama bin Laden was identified by the shadow, right?
Correct. Yeah, and there are camera algorithms that video algorithms that can identify people by their unique walking style. Like everybody has a unique walking style that's as unique as your fingerprint. And
Yeah, China, Skynet do this.
right,
I
and
imagine that the third world is far behind this, as the national ID is just still being debated as to how to universally do it in the Philippines. So I imagine third world countries are not going to be on board soon enough, right?
what
I think
there's
for
Oh, you would be
Singaporean,
surprised. You would be
for
surprised. Some of the countries has got like literally initiated that about
wait
15 years ago, well before
literally
the Western countries.
wait
no,
wait
no,
Literally.
Singapore, in
Come
Singapore,
on, Tyler, let it go.
everyone has an ID since birth.
Figuratively done.
I would
Well,
imagine that
technically,
my. Go ahead, Heyman.
if you think of all
wait
the even third
wait
world countries,
technically
technically,
technically,
yes,
Or
technically.
Technically and
Think
figuratively,
literally.
of all the
or
Indonesian
literally.
Hypothetically,
apps. Synthetically, maybe not, but
Syn-
this
How
is
about
technically.
virtually?
No,
hypothetic
but
how about
technically,
hypothetically?
and no, this is technically,
Okay,
definitely
spiritually,
technically. Grab cabs, all these apps that are already in Asia, technically have your data,
they have it
Yeah,
spiritually as
they
well.
have.
right? So you don't need that's their ID. That's your ID, your phone and the app.
Oh
Yeah, but
no,
to execute it, I'm sorry, Cheryl, go ahead. You were trying to talk all this time. Go
no,
ahead.
we have. I think this one, as I mentioned, every Singaporean once born, we have an ID.
you
And
got wait
I
wait
just,
wait
I just, I
wait
just
wait
DM
you got
Tyler something.
hang on, Singaporeans have IDs?
Yeah,
Everyone has
fingerprints,
an ID.
Okay.
ID
Hey man,
number, ID
Now we
number.
get
Breaking
to.
news.
hey man, to
But
your point,
this means we're technically
a phone
literally
number is
there.
not sufficient to identify you in an emerging market
Yeah,
context because people
but
switch.
Right.
There's
when
only
it
usually
got
one
enough,
phone
we
per
got a
family.
fingerprint.
Yeah,
Fingerprint.
exactly. In
So
India,
let
yes.
Cheryl at least finish the Cheryl, go ahead. Sorry. Like
Yeah, we
it
have
just
fingerprint. Once you have an ID card, and just now I just DM Tyler something that if the government want to give away free money, they just send it directly to your ID and then to your bank. I
Oh,
just sent
nice.
Tyler something that I just received some free money again from my government yesterday without
All
any hassle.
move. Let's all move to Singapore.
That's a good point about it. So just let the government have your data. It's the most secure.
But to Sarah's
If you
point,
trust your government.
Sarah, you were saying.
Yeah, you need
just
you
let's give it to the government.
Just go
That's fine.
to
for
They'll take care of
Give
let's
us.
it to
let's
them.
send
They'll take care of us.
let's send Cheryl to Xinjiang and let them know that they should just
Oh no,
hand
no,
over the data. I mean, what's the problem?
So
no,
for
I gave it
Cheryl to
to.
receive money into her bank account, not only does she need to have a digital ID, but the government needs to know that this ID is linked to this precise bank account.
Right.
It's
Which, for
exactly
instance,
link. Yeah, it's link.
yeah.
Anyway, we have this
So
thing
that,
called the Sync Pass, which is our ID. There's this online login thing. Then everything is linked up, and there's facial recognition too if you choose to. If not,
but
yeah.
that's because Singapore is amazing. But in terms of
Thank
infrastructure, what I'm trying to say to answer Divya's question, a lot of countries are not as amazing when it comes to infrastructure. Some people don't even have a unified ID. In
But
Indonesia, you don't have an
it's
ID.
That's
yeah.
but
right.
it's
We've
not
been
even that.
trying
Yeah.
to say.
It's that Germany is the reason when Germany uses cash, and when the reason why you go to Berlin and nobody accepts credit cards and everything's in cash, it's not that they don't know what a credit card is or that they technically don't want it. It's that they had these things called Nazis, and they don't want the government coming back
They had,
to
they had.
and they
They
You
had,
know what?
right?
There's a
Literal
German on
They
stage.
Nazis.
What
have,
literally
they literally
I'm
have
gonna
literally
get
Nazis.
literally
Nazis.
again. Stop it.
They had literal Nazis.
No. We're
I
gonna
have
think
to
about
imagine
this.
that if they identify my walk, it would. create a category called sexual chocolate.
Literally.
Literally.
Hey, Michael.
Vomit
Categorically.
that's on my phone.
Yeah, I wanted to
Somebody
add.
else.
I wanted to add to
Let's
Sarah's
get it
point,
on.
some African perspective here.
Go ahead.
Tanzania, where I'm from,
Yep.
if you didn't drive, if you didn't vote, and if you didn't travel, which I estimate to be about a third of the country, you had no ID identification to anyone in Tanzania 3-4 years ago. We copied India and maybe took a page from Singapore, introduced our national ID system, NIDA, and we forced everyone to use it. You couldn't get a cell phone if you had a SIM card, which of course Tanzania has very high mobile penetration, just like many emerging markets. It was you were more likely to have a phone number than you did a national ID. They actually forced you your SIM card was deactivated if you didn't get a NIDA card, right? And so that drove, and of course, if you have no phone, you have no life. So that actually drove lots of, and I remember I had to go to a village outside Arusha in Tanzania here, and they had a proper setup with DSLR cameras, fingerprint scanners, and actually this was funded by Gates Foundation, right? Who also gave the grant for M-Pesa to scale in Tanzania, the mobile money system. So actually now, you literally we have, I don't know if the adoption is super high yet, but you can't exist in Tanzania without having a NIDA card.
Wait, literally?
Phone or otherwise.
Literally.
Literally.
Why? You're so surprised.
So wait. Bill Gates knows, basically. That's all the chip and Bill Gates stuff again.
It all comes back to Bill Gates for emerging markets, or somehow, particularly.
Do you have to get the vaccine?
Yeah, no, but I can imagine the government will say you must have your NIDA present to get vaccinated. They're going to start using it for everything. So they're going to take a page out of Sweden and Singapore. But it's been revolutionary, right? Because of course anti-money laundering, right? We always forget that there are these people called terrorists who like to hide in places like Mozambique and Tanzania, and prey on the poor and convert them to terrorists. And so actually the drive for this is also partly driven by anti-money laundering because a lot of money gets washed up in bad places. And so that's actually what really focused the government in Tanzania to also handle this. And also, of course, multi-SIM, right? In Tanzania, it's very likely that you also have more than one SIM card, and that also introduces other potential areas of fraud, right, as well. So yeah, just I think emerging markets, particularly in Africa, we have an opportunity to leapfrog some of these systems and learn. So I'm just learning from everyone in the clubhouse room so I can tell the government what to do next.
It's by the way, this is a similar situation in Pakistan as well. By the way, I wanted to share this very interesting news. One of the provinces of Pakistan is called Sindh. They yesterday they issued the directive that any of their employee, the government employee, if they don't get the vaccine, they won't be paid next month. Here we go.
So how many of these new tech systems that literally point towards Revelation 13, Tyler, do we have to hear until we realize that's what's happening?
Let's see. We'll keep an eye on it. One interesting development that we didn't touch on today, and it's one of the biggest stories in the tech sphere at the moment. It's a very big one. Is that Biden expands the bans on Chinese tech companies. And in fact, this was the one that we meant to start the whole show with today because we talked about this in Justin's room before we came in here, and this is from the New York Times and many others, that Biden expands the Trump-era ban on investment in Chinese firms linked to military. The new order includes firms engaged in making and deploying the surveillance technology used against Muslim minorities and dissidents around the globe. George P. Bush, who's the son of Jeb Bush, is running for Texas Attorney General. I don't know how those two fit together, but on this point around Biden issues an order banning 59 Chinese tech companies that aid in their surveillance, substantially expanding on an earlier order by Trump. The new order includes firms engaged in making and deploying the surveillance technologies against Muslim minorities and dissidents around the globe. And it apparently is, But it's due to that BBC revelation a few days ago that the facial recognition and emotion detection was being used against Uyghurs, and now Biden. By the way, somebody who I will keep nameless because I don't think they want it to be named sent me a private DM of somebody they were corresponding with who happens to have the actual list of the actual banned Chinese companies by Biden, and I happen to have it right here. I assume I'm able to read it, but not reveal who's sharing it, so because they sent it on a very private DM. But it includes China North Industries Group, China Aerospace Science Industry Corporation, China Shipbuilding Industry. The Biden list also includes Huangzhou, Hikvision Digital Technology, the developer of surveillance cameras and facial recognition technology that has helped Chinese authorities roll out safe city initiatives. They call them quote unquote safe cities initiatives in Xinjiang, where ethnic Uyghurs have faced persecution. Companies on Biden's list that weren't covered in Trump's initial ban, so these are new ones being added now, include Zhonghang Electronic Measuring Instruments, Jinji Hongdu Aviation Industry. Others include Proven Honor Capital, Proven Glory Capital, Shangji, and a bunch of other companies you've never ever heard of. And essentially, these are all companies that the thing that unites them all is that they are in some sense involved in surveillance of Uyghurs. And so Biden has added them to a list that American companies are not allowed to do business with in any kind of shape, way, or form. So it's
Tyler, I
yes.
just tweeted the White House government executive order.
Okay.
So the list of companies is in that executive order.
Oh, okay. So it's been made public. Oh, I see it now. Thank you. And I'm retweeting your tweet. And let's see if they go through the whole list that I was just rambling about. Do they mention all the companies? I guess they do. Yes, they do. There
They
it
do.
is. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I just sent that out from the Tech News Twitter account, which you can see at TNATW, which we do hope you follow because that's how you stay up to speed on everything. And we're just approaching on 2,000
Is Monica
followers.
still there? Is Monica, are you here?
Monica, you in there?
Oh, no, because she wanted to. We have to talk about the session we have tomorrow morning with her
Okay.
club.
Oh, right.
Yes.
That's
So
right.
remember to do that at some point.
Right.
That's
Well,
all.
her and James, right? And is James not here either?
Yes. FinTech and payment tech.
That's right. So I
Monica
believe
was here, but she's just gone.
I believe they're on the calendar, and I can confirm that myself by clicking on the title of this room, which we should all do actually.
Oh, Monica is here. Monica is here.
Monica, you there?
Stage.
So
Ground control.
in 10 minutes we have two rooms opening one room is opening. The metaverse with our friends Victoria and Michael and their friend John, where they're going to talk about all things VR and AR, of which there's a whole lot of crazy shit going on. And then shortly after that, May will be starting a room live from Miami called Live from Miami, the Bitcoin Conference Day 1 with May and Linda and Luis and Elizabeth and others. And they're going to talk about all things crypto and what's happening on the ground there in Miami. And hope you can join us for both of those. We'll be hanging out there for the rest of the afternoon or day, wherever you happen to be. And that's starting in 10 minutes. But anyone had another headline burning that they'd like to share?
Tyler, I
Yes?
just wanted to make a remark about that Bitcoin. I found that kind of amusing because Elon Musk makes a tweet, it dropped 7% today. So I thought that was interesting that
What was the
article I
tweet?
tweeted. I just
The meme.
tweeted it. Let me see.
I sent it to the DM too, Tyler.
Yeah, it's through Reuters. I can retweet it again, but
I
yeah, it
got it.
says because he made
He recommended a song from Linkin Park.
Your Amanda and Michael completes you.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey,
In
Tyler,
the
this
end,
It was a
Michael
meme.
completes you.
this is Gabby.
Hey,
I
Gabby.
just want to tell you that Jack Dorsey is now getting chewed out at the Bitcoin conference about the censorship on Twitter while
Oh.
he's up on the stage promoting Bitcoin and what he's doing in third world countries.
Oh,
It's going on right now as we speak, so they're making him address Twitter's terms and conditions.
and is it specific to any particular geography? The
No. Right now they're just talking about how
censorship.
Twitter, yes, and it doesn't allow freedom of speech, and how could he be promoting Bitcoin, something that's
Wow.
decentralized when
Right.
They're
Twitter,
pulling him over
yeah.
the.
There was, by the way, a headline today, and Michelle, if you're here, that apparently there is Facebook staff, and not only Facebook staff, other companies as well. I believe it was Google as well, are also starting to create petitions internally about their being unhappy with how the moderation is happening at the company that they work for. Although I have to imagine, here's one right here. Facebook employees demand change around Palestinian posts is the headline. But it's as I said, it's not specific to Facebook. Even there was, I believe, Google was also mentioned. Let me read this one real quick. It says a letter signed by nearly 200 Facebook employees urges the company's executives to set up an internal task force to investigate and address potential biases in both human and automated content moderation systems. This is being reported by the Financial Times. Nearly 200 Facebook employees have signed a letter to address concerns that pro-Palestinian voices on the social media site are being suppressed by content moderation systems, both human and automated. And it was actually Michelle who helped us understand that this is a delicate balance of algorithms that get escalated to human oversight, and it takes time, and then they usually correct and apologize and restate the removed content. But anyway, this letter, first reported by Financial Times, urges Facebook's leadership to introduce new measures that ensure pro-Palestinian content is not taken down, as critics claim happened during last month's Gaza conflict. And by the way, this happened in India as well, around the hashtags like Resign Modi, where they were being removed and people thought they were being banned. And then Michelle, again, helped us understand that this happens in many countries, in many contexts, where there's the algorithm detects patterns that it then kind of starts to remove that content systematically until human moderators can come in and make a more human assessment. And then once they do, if they do feel like that it was, not hate speech or anything like that, then they reinstate the content and they issue formal apologies. The problem is that can take 48 hours. And during that 48 hours, those people who sent that content originally, if they've never experienced anything like that before, somewhat correctly assume that they are being silenced and that the platforms have something against their cause, potentially. And of course, Facebook doesn't want to be perceived as being against people's causes, right? They just are naturally want to protect the people using their platform for hate speech. So the system needs to become more optimized for everybody's benefit, so that people don't mistakenly think that Facebook's trying to silence them when they're not. They reinstate the content and formally apologize. The problem is, again, that 48-hour process of switching from algorithms to humans, it needs to be optimized, because people are going to continue to think, wherever this happens, they think it's unique to them and that it's not happening all over the planet every day, every week. Because it's happening in the Middle East, it's happening in India, and undoubtedly lots of other places. But now you've got
apparently
Facebook.
not Nigeria anymore.
Tyler,
Yeah.
It,
on
it happens to Leah.
How Jean Francois? What do you mean it happens to
Yeah,
Leah?
yeah, it happens to Leah. The bot where automatically stop Leah from Messenger, and then close the page for 24 hours for she was having discussion on COVID in India, and then it triggered the system, and then everything went well after. Like it took 24 hours, but it happens, and then they didn't apologize for it, but it was, she did nothing wrong. It was only the system that just glitched, and then it was
Wow.
more sensible. Yeah.
So
But
and
doesn't this
in
exactly speak against
News,
a
news,
governmental
just
AI?
Hey,
I
guys,
mean,
guys, guys. Hey, who's
news.
wait, guys. Is that Misha or somebody trying to speak? I just want to make sure that
yeah,
we, yeah,
it
go
was
ahead.
about
Sorry.
the same topic about taking down tweets and messages from Facebook. Actually, it was the government that asked to take down certain tweets because citizens were talking about how the government is not doing enough for COVID relief, and the Supreme Court actually stepped in and said that you cannot ask these companies to take down tweets that are against you or are complaining or grieving about how there are not enough reliefs available for COVID in India, and they have an absolute right of freedom of speech and expression. So it wasn't an algorithm, it was actually that they were asked to take down those tweets.
Right. Yeah, that's a
The
great
news
point.
has just come in.
Yeah, but you
The
need to
news
hold
just has come.
Karam, my friend. Just hang on to your pants, my friend. The world will continue on as that news is breaking in your head. Just hold on to it. So on this point, which is very important, she's absolutely right. One of the points that the social media team members are trying to make, and this is really interesting, and it puts these companies in a very tight situation, which is India tells the social media platforms, and Israel as well has told the social media platforms, and other countries have as well, have told them, you need to take down this content. Russia does as well, by the way. So when countries tell Facebook and Twitter and whoever else, you must take down this content, and those platforms agree, okay, sorry, boss, we're going to take down that content because it's your country, it's your rules, and if you're not happy, you're going to kick us out and we're going to lose all that money. So, of course, we're going to take down the content that you don't like in your own country. Right. Well, now the employees in America, being goddamn Americans, are telling their American company, hey, boss, why are you letting Putin push you around? We're Americans. We don't bow down to Putin. And so now the American companies are being pressured by their American team members who aren't able to empathize with the fact that other countries have other policies that they don't agree with. And so they're trying, the company bosses in America are caught between their very stubborn, stupid American employees and their very stubborn, stupid authoritarian regimes, to put it.
By the way, we
To
don't
put
all
it,
sound like that, audience.
yeah, but I'm just oversimplifying the point to make a point, which is they're caught in a very difficult position, and it seems like there's a little lack of global open-mindedness from the employees who are accusing their boss of caving to the whims of these countries because, well, at the end of the day, it's their country, and you're going to do what they say or you're going to get the fuck out.
And Tyler, I just want to add something.
Yeah.
We say when we post content, but the point I want to have is that even when you're having your discussion in Facebook Messenger, it could trigger the bots.
Of course. But here's the interesting point is, what happens when the employees tell, for example, just to really oversimplify this point, the employees say, write to Mark Zuckerberg, because they've got a campaign of signature collection, and they send a letter to Mark Zuckerberg saying, hey, when India told you to remove the content about resign Modi, and you did, you should not do that anymore. And then Zuckerberg's going to say, oh, really? Because if I don't remove that content and we get kicked out of Facebook, you don't have a job anymore. So are you sure you want me to do that? And they're going to say, yes, boss, you shouldn't bend to Modi. And he's going to say, okay, fine. And then India gets kicked out of Facebook, and he says, well, guys, I got good news and bad news. We didn't cave to Modi. So the good news is we kept the content up on Facebook. The bad news is we no longer exist in India, and now we're laying off you and everyone else who signed the letter because now we just lost billions of dollars because we're not in India. But thanks for playing, everybody. It was a lot of fun. And okay, what other projects are we working on today? And let's say goodbye to our employees who made the incredibly self-sacrificial decision to remove us from India and remove their own jobs in the process. So what would you do if you were Mark Zuckerberg?
And Facebook just banned him for 2 years now. I just retweeted. I guess they just put that news out. Trump.
That's what
So
I desperately wanted to share at that time, Tyler.
Okay, so now Karam can share his breaking news. Go ahead.
No, that was the news. Facebook banned Trump for 2 years, suspended. That was the news coming in. That's what I
Okay,
wanted to
because
share.
I have another breaking news that someone's trying to share with me simultaneously, which is Twitter ban in Nigeria is what it says, but it's not clear if Twitter is banning Nigeria or if Nigeria is banning Twitter.
Nigeria is banning Twitter. Twitter apparently deleted a post from their president, and now he retaliates by forbidding Twitter to operate within their borders.
Fantastic.
I sent it a Business Insider
These guys
link.
are not
It's
joking.
And we sent it.
32 minutes old.
I'll resend it also. It was on BBC a few days ago when Twitter banned their leader for cause of creating risk of civil war.
Mm.
I was gonna say, what if this starts breaking out like wars? It's like what's happening with the social media platforms? This could get ugly, right?
Well, Twitter is
It
almost like a
would.
little country now.
Yep. So, who's starting the room first? Victoria and Michael, can you get your room
Yep,
hopping?
we're on our way.
This is a hot news right
And
now.
Go ahead, Heyman.
Tyler,
Facebook board has oversight board says that Trump's suspended for 2 years
What?
now.
Are
Will
you
only be
serious?
reinstated if conditions permit. Yep,
Are
he
you?
just
That's
Yeah,
announced
what
it
I'm
today.
that's what
sharing.
I
What?
that's what
I
What?
we
don't know, Tyler. You're
tweeted.
not
wow.
picking up.
What?
That's what I
Heyman, wait,
said.
hang on. Heyman, why didn't anybody
Come
tell
on.
me? Wait, Heyman,
Say
Heyman,
again?
Heyman,
Oh, right.
We
Heyman.
were trying to tell
Hold on, hold
you.
on,
I
hold
was
on. Wait,
leaving.
wait,
No,
wait, 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 wait,
literally,
wait, 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 wait.
literally.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Heyman, you mean literally? You mean they literally are banning
Yes.
him for two
Come on. Tyler
years?
is in different mode
Is that
right
is that in
now.
Toronto?
Chronically,
Everyone
dude.
was trying to
That's in
find
Chronologically.
it.
They're
Toronto.
literally banning him.
Yeah,
Tyler, I just
suspending,
heard that
suspending.
he
Tyler.
will be suspended for 2 years. I'm
Yeah.
just saying.
Wait, wait,
Now
wait.
we
What?
know
Wait, what
who's
happened?
Literally in the
Wait,
listening.
tweet.
wait, wait, wait.
Literally.
What happened? Who's getting banned?
Trump
I
is
think it's
suspended.
Donald Trump. I think it's Donald Trump. I'm not sure. I
Holy shit!
think
This is
it's
breaking
Donald
news,
Trump.
folks. Hold on, hold on.
I have some breaking news, Tyler.
That's funny.
Ladies and
Oh,
gentlemen, this is just in. Apparently,
Kuram, how's it
Is it
going?
Justin or
I'm
Justin?
I'm pretty sure it was John Francois just informed us for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. Hang on, Jeff. Do you have some news you want to share?
Oh, I wanted to share the researchers claim that they have sequenced the entirety of the human genome, including the missing parts from
Ah,
2 decades ago.
yes. When
So
Craig.
that happened this week.
That's a
Yep.
very interesting update because, as those of us who follow that industry, Craig Venter of Genentech was the one who
Hmm.
was in a shot. They called it shotgunning, where he was sporadically finding different parts of the genome, and he was in a race to crown himself as the first person to do the human genome. And in
Hmm.
reality, it was very well understood and known by insiders that he was shotgunning and actually wasn't doing thoroughly the entire genome. And Jeff's headline is that now some team somewhere. Do you happen to know where, Jeff?
Yeah, it was two separate teams, and they're using the two different separate techniques. And it was Solera
Yep.
and the Human Genome Project.
Project.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to see
makes
what the
sense.
other one is.
That those both
Yeah,
make perfect sense. And now they have
yeah,
actually thoroughly, properly desequenced the entire human genome. And
yeah,
so,
including all the repeating parts. That was
yep,
the most difficult part of it, was
in
the repeating sequences.
which is a lot. Yeah,
Jeff, when was that done?
That was this week. They just announced that they have claimed. I mean, obviously, it needs to be confirmed, but it's they've claimed that they've found it all. The remaining 8% this week.
that's wild. And so, by the way, we will do a deep dive room on just how crazy of a Pandora's box that now opens. By the way, because you
Better.
think, yeah,
Yeah, I
Well,
was
the
just gonna
missing
say.
part was the Twitter part, literally about Donald Trump being banned for 2
say
years, is
what?
in there.
What?
Yes,
Literally?
literally for two
Literally.
years.
It's actually
Just letting
in.
Literally,
you
Jeff.
know.
It was in his
Jeff,
DNA.
literally. That was the missing 8%.
Donald who?
Technically. Hey,
Oh,
nice
my
to have you
proxy
here,
and
is
human
Jeff. Jeff.
genome.
How's it
Yeah,
going?
Ah,
Hi, man.
and
Hey,
thank
hey,
you,
Jeff,
Cal,
why
for
is your
having me
first
on.
name Clubhouse? Why is your first name Clubhouse? That's okay.
It's Clubhouse Jeff, because I
Okay, it's
renamed
nice.
myself last year and I couldn't change my name back,
Wait,
because when I started last year, they didn't allow you to change that. And now, since I'm known as it,
You're
there's no
stuck with
reason to
it.
but
change
now
to Jeff.
now
Yeah.
it now that's literally your name. It's Clubhouse Jeff.
Yeah, well,
Literally,
Oh,
isn't
good
it?
Yes.
brain.
Jeff
Good job, Jeff.
Ettringer is my name literally, but
Okay.
Clubhouse Jeff here is literally my name for 2 years, and then I get
Oh
it back.
Jesus. I
if
love.
I can just add
Multiple
some
IDs.
to the genomic data. So most of it was like this ancient viral DNA that wasn't really decoded, and NIH studies. This will be very important for like especially ALS and Huntington and this type of disorders, because NIH studies have shown that people that take antiviral medicines, as patients with HIV, that had ALS like as an underlying condition beforehand and didn't know about it, their disorder never really broke out. They're like in their 60s now, and they are just fine. So the idea now is that these disorders are basically coming from this ancient viral DNA that becomes active. So, I have high hopes that this breakthrough will give us new ways of treating this type of neurodegenerative disorders, just as a background.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Pretty awesome.
By the way, thank you to Katerina, because Katerina was on fire in the sharing the headlines in Twitter today. So thank you for that. And do follow the Twitter account. Do follow the Tech News Club, because we're all heading over to the Metaverse room hosted by our friends Victoria and Michael. And you can follow me and Cal and most of the people on stage over there. And other than that,
we have a 7 o'clock, right?
Yeah, it's starting
Tomorrow
right
morning,
now.
7 a.m.
Yeah, it's already started.
Yeah. So we will
Literally
started right now.
Literally.
They literally just started it.
Virtually did.
Yeah.
Technically.
Is somebody doing a tally of how many times literally has been said?
And well, Donald Trump may or may not make an appearance in that room.
Yeah,
literally.
Metaphysically.
spiritually.
Eamon from Toronto may.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Cheryl from Singapore will make an appearance.
Accidentally.
Of course.
You never cease to
Tyler,
entertain.
I have some interesting
show my
statistics
support.
for you.
Biologically?
No, you haven't said unicorn one single time this session.
Oh, wow. That might be a first, literally.
Oh, yes.
Mechanically.
Yes.
And nobody said rabbit hole today.
Yeah, no, he
Rabbit
had actually mentioned rabbit hole 2 times today. I'm not sure if it was this or the other session, but there's not one single unicorn cited during this session.
Wow. And Johan is a Rain Man, very literally. So,
God.
see you over